1945 and 1949 pension plans, along with the October 2023 update. Heather Siegler, Morgan Stanley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Siegler, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. All right, everyone should have a copy of our presentation. We're going to go through, talk about the market a little bit. We've got an update through, actually I brought it through a little bit of November just because it's better news. I hate giving bad news, so September and October weren't particularly good months, so I brought it forward a little bit so we can look at that as well. We're going to flip forward a couple pages. This just gives you an overview. You can see where the markets were as we talk through this. As we move into the last few months of the year, the question on every investor's mind is whether we are entering a recession, if we'll somehow be able to engineer this great escape from that. The implications for businesses, individuals, and investors alike are significant given the impact on the financial, housing, and labor markets. When you look at the financial market performance, it has remained extremely narrow, with the Magnificent Seven, which was what everybody's dubbed that term this year, still accounting for the vast majority of gains in the equity markets. However, even those stocks have started to show a little bit of sign of exhaustion leading into the third quarter. When you look back, many stocks have been in really more of a bear market and have been left behind by those few mega cap large technology stocks. At some point there will be a rotation towards areas of the market that have a far more attractive valuation. The bond market is looking to have another unprecedented third year of losses in a row due to the Federal Reserve's attempts to moderate inflation. There's no doubt that the central bank would like to continue to rebalance the supply and demand in our economy. The third quarter GDP numbers were expected to come in at 4%. We've gotten those since the end of the quarter, and they actually came in at 4.9%, which is extremely strong. Employment has remained strong, with the unemployment tracking right now at 3.9%. And the labor market is really experiencing its highest participation rate since the post-COVID era. The Fed policy, when we look at that, the main drivers of the hawkish Fed policy have shifted a little bit since we met last. They're really just shifted from containing headline inflation to now they're looking at containing growth and the strength of the labor market, which are really sources of that stickier inflation that they're trying to combat. The Fed fund futures still discounts 4 rate cuts next year, even though the Fed guidance has been that they would have no more than 2. When you look at the outlook for the market, the headwinds on the economy have really been mounting. We may finally be at an inflection point where we're tipping into that classic, what looks like a recession in the next several months. The question is still are we going to, if this recession actually does hit, is it going to continue to be shallow the way it's expected? Is it going to be a normal recession or more of a deep recession? From the technicality, from a real recession standpoint, inflation has exceeded GDP for the last year now. From a historical perspective, this should be expected as the central bank has induced a recession every time they've increased interest rates. And so if that's been the case in prior economic cycles, I'm not sure why the question would be if this is going to be different. We'll just wait and see how shallow, normal, or deep that recession is. As we go into the year end, we do expect the markets to continue their volatility, but we are long-term investors, and as a long-term investor, we take the information, we digest it, but we keep that long-term perspective in mind. If you look on the page that you have here in front of you, you can see the S&P 500. And we talked about that Magnificent Seven through the end of September and beginning of October. They accounted for almost all of the performance. And so that year-to-date performance up 13.07%. The Russell Mid-Cap Index, just looking at the mid-cap stocks, up 3.91%. And the smallest cap companies, the Russell 2000 Index, up 2.54%. When you look at the sector allocation and the breakdowns, you can see that the best performing sector for the quarter was energy, and the worst performing sector were utilities. So up big variance between positive 12.22% and negative 9.25%. Next page just gives a look at the international markets. You can see by the pages here, if you look at the MSCI EFA, which is our developed international markets, up 7% for the year, and the emerging markets up 2.16%. Not quite as positive for those. And then we just look at the Barclays aggregate. I mentioned that earlier, down 1.21% year to date. This just gives you a quarterly review of the performance. This is for the 1949 plan. You can see we began the year at $64,889,609. We've had net distributions out of $2,388,822. an investment gain through the third quarter of $3,666,903, giving us that ending market value of just over $66,167. The breakdown on the left-hand side shows you the equity allocation. You can see we had domestic equities right at 60%, international at 13.96%, which continue to be underweight international, bringing us to our total equity of 63.68%, and our fixed income at just over 26%. We keep cash on hand for those monthly distributions that we pay out. Next page just gives you a look at the performance by manager. You can see the third quarter was not particularly positive for any of our managers. When you look at the large cap value, we're down 3.58%, still positive on the fiscal year, right at 3. Our large cap core portfolio down 3.5%, and the fiscal year still up 15.25%. Obviously, if we look at the index, they had to have had exposure to the Magnificent Seven stocks, or they would not have had that good of performance. Our all-cap core performance for MDT down 2.5 for the quarter, but up 9.2% on your fiscal year. Your international, we have your two managers, Lazard, which is your large cap, more value-oriented manager, for the quarter down 5, but for the fiscal up 6.7. And then Thornburg, which is your more growth-oriented manager, down 4.7 for the quarter and positive 6.8 for the fiscal. Your fixed income portfolio for the quarter down 3 and down 0.38% for the fiscal year. Both of those, even though in most of these managers, if you look at them, even though they may have be in line at the quarter, they are ahead of their benchmarks for the fiscal year. That takes our total return for the 49 plan through the third quarter with the cash we have on hand of down 3.3% and up 6% right now for the fiscal year. I will mention to you, because I did want to bring you more positive news, I pulled that information through yesterday just to see where we were, and we are actually up right now, I'm going to tell you the exact number, 10.3%. And so we've had a really great takeoff to October was a negative for us, but November has made up for October's losses. We hope December will continue the same trajectory. This just shows historically the cash flows. And then that's the updated values. So this was through earlier this week, actually, because we have to go through compliance to get approval, and this is the November 13th. We're up 7.1% and 10.3 through last night. That is a huge difference. Yes, that's what the market has been up about over 1% the last several days. 1945 pension plan. You can take it, unless there's any questions on the 49 plan. Okay. All right, 45 plan, we started the year at $4,738,868. We have had distributions of just over $102,570 net, an investment gain of $189,927, bringing us to $4,826,225. For this plan, it is considered a small plan, so we have less equity exposure. We were at 52.83% through the end of September, so in line with the Georgia guidance code. Fixed income at 45% and a little bit higher degree of cash at 1.8%. Very mature plan.
I have a question regarding that plan. How many participants are in that plan?
Through the information that we had from the actuary, I believe it was in January, I think we were at, in the 45 plan, we were showing 0 active participants. There were 16 retirees or disabled participants for a total of 16 participants in total.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On the large cap value portfolio for the quarter, down 3.5 and positive just over 3% for the fiscal. Your large cap core down 3.5 for the quarter, up 15.15 on the fiscal. And then we have your all cap portfolio down 2.5 for the quarter and fiscal up 9.25. Your fixed income portfolio down right at 3 and down 0.37 for the fiscal, bringing your total return with the cash on hand for the quarter down 3 and for the fiscal up 4.3%. And give you the update for that one as well. Through this week, it was up 4.7%, and through yesterday, 7.5%. So we are right now ahead of our actuarial assumption for both plans. We just have to, whether it's a pause or better, we just don't want it to turn back on us through now and the end of the year. Any additional questions? Any predictions? No? that concludes my performance presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions from this committee? Chair recognizes Interim Administrator Downs.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. I motion that we receive this presentation as information.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, do we need to vote on this? We have to take a
Yes,
vote?
sir.
All right, let's vote.
No objection.
No objections? All right,
Good.
this information is received. Madam, thank you for bringing us this report today. We appreciate you. Have a great and wonderful Thanksgiving with
Thank
your
you.
family, okay?
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I'd like to close out this portion of the meeting. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let's continue. We have another
Yes, sir.
portion. Thank you.
Item 2 is a presentation of actuarial reports for the GMEPS pension.
Thank you. Madam?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Michelle Warner. I'm with the Georgia Municipal Association. As you're aware, your current pension plan, where your new hires go into, is managed by GMA. And I have Malachi Waterman here. He is our actuary with Siegel, and he's going to go through the most recent actuarial valuation for the open plan as well as the planning and commission plan.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Siegel, sir, you have the floor.
All right. Can y'all hear me? A little better? How's that? All right. Am I in control of this thing or no?
Yes.
Okay. Wait, where's the... There it is. Bear with me. Here we go. Okay, so as Michelle said, this is for the July 1, 2023 actuarial valuation year. We actually have results for two plans. There's the Augusta retirement plan and then the Augusta GMEBS Plan 2, which used to be called the Augusta Richmond County Planning Commission. That is a closed plan since 2006. There are only 9 retirees remaining in that. We'll cover that at the end, but we'll start with the regular Augusta retirement plan. There's some time for questions at the end, but feel free to interrupt me at any time. This could go quickly. Okay. So on this first page here, summary evaluation results for the Augusta retirement plan. A couple things to call out. The recommended contribution is actually up as a dollar amount for the January 1, 2024 fiscal year from about $8 million to $8.7 million. However, if you look at that as expected as a percent of payroll, that's actually down from 7.2% to 7.18%. That's reflective of the fact that the payroll has actually gone up by almost $10 million from $110 million to $120 million for the city. So that recommended contribution is 7.18%. If we pay that recommended contribution for the next 17 years, we are predicting that would pay off the unfunded actuarial accrued liability of about $46 million currently. And then the state minimum, which is just paying that over 30 years instead of the 17, would be about $6.9 million. We don't recommend anybody contribute that, but as long as you stay above that number, the state will not give you any hassle about your recommended contributions. And that's a 5.7%. Funded percentages, we have a smooth value of 83.73%, which is just a little bit up from last year, 83.57%. Market value of assets slightly lower at 82.78%. That's reflective of the fact that we had some asset losses that were deferred, and those amount to about $300,000 in deferred asset losses. We'll recognize those over the next 10 years. And then if we look at the participation in the plan, we have slightly less employees last year, from 2,200 down to 2,198 actives. But like I said, the payroll has gone up, and the average age and service has remained flat from 44.9 average age and 9.4 average service. Questions on this? This next page just gets into a little bit of the history of where our funded percentages and recommended contributions and then the demographics have gone for the past 10 years. A couple of things jump out on this page. The recommended contribution jumped up in between 2017 and 2018, you'll notice, from 4.63% to 7.49%. And also the funded percentage went down. I dug into the reasons for that. A couple of reasons. That's when we changed the plan to go from 1.65% benefit multiplier up to a 2% benefit multiplier, as well as added in some alternative normal retirement provisions, and we lowered the discount rate that same year. So given all that, dropping from 91.9 down to 82.6% is not that bad. And then again, between 2019 and 2020, we changed all of our assumptions, and you see a tiny move in the recommended contribution rate during that time from 6.24 to 7.44%. We're now right around 7.2, 7.18, remaining steady. I expect that to probably continue and then eventually be coming on downward, which I'll show you in the projections here in a little bit. Questions on that? Okay. This page just outlines what the plan is. I mentioned the 2% accrual multiplier. Normal retirement age is 65, pretty standard. But then we have these normal retirement ages 62 and 25 for general employees, and then 55 and 25 for police. Employee contributions, the newest employees all put in 6.25% of pay. There are older groups that go as low as 4%, but everyone's paying something into the plan. Everyone has a little bit of skin in the game with this one. And then early retirement is at 55 and 5. And 1.5% annual cost of living for retirees, which increases the benefit each year, which is good to have, and then 100% vesting at 5 years. And of course, 457B. Questions on that? Okay. So the next few pages, I'll show some projections. These are all based on the actuarial assumptions, starting with a 7.375% future returns on assets. And also all of our demographic assumptions are assumed to happen as expected. The first one here is projected contribution rate. And this is what I was talking about before. Right now, we're at about a 7% contribution rate. I see that sort of remaining flat for the next 4 to 5 years as we recognize those deferred asset losses. But then we'll start paying down that unfunded pretty quickly, and you'll see the we project out that the recommended contribution will actually go down, eventually down to about 3%. That's just the city's portion, of course, and then the 6.25% will come from the employees. Questions on that? Okay. This next slide only shows the same numbers, but as dollars instead of percentage of pay. And what happens here is you see the increase in dollars as we remain flat because of inflation adjustments. And then as the funded percentage improves and we start paying down that unfunded liability, it'll actually dip down, bottoms out about $8 million a year, and it'll start creeping up with inflation there towards the end of the projection. And then, of course, the funded percentage. This is what you want to see. Right now, we're just short of 85%, and we're projecting this to eventually improve all the way up to 100% till the plan is fully funded. And that's really demonstrative of the funding policy of the plan. That's exactly what will happen if we do exactly what we say we're going to do. Okay. Questions on any of that? I think that wraps up the regular Augusta plan. Yes, sir.
I don't have any questions. I don't think the committee has any questions.
Okay. So I've got just a few slides on the next one.
All right,
On the
let's
other
continue.
plan, if you guys have time for that. And that will be the Augusta GMEBS Plan 2. This one's really easy. The recommended contribution actually went down just a little bit from $12,275. Those are not millions. That's not a typo. Down to $11,954. Essentially, what that plan is paying is just the administrative expenses for sending out the benefit payments. You can see that 126% funded on an actuarial basis, meaning that the plan is fully funded, so you don't really have to pay contributions to fund the benefits. You're only really paying for the administrative expenses. There are no more active participants, so you're not paying for increases in benefits. And we are down to 9 retirees. Those retirees have an average benefit of about $2,800 on average, and their average age is 74.3. So this group is getting up there. I expect them to start dwindling down, unfortunately, over time. Looking at a history here, you can see we had an active up until 2021. They eventually retired, and now we're down to 0. Most of this covered salary and average salary no longer means anything. I will tell you that the total benefits paid for these 9 people is about $23,000 a month and $282,000 a year. And that's all coming right out of the fund. And this is just old information now because there are no actives getting this benefit. Everyone's getting what they already have earned, so I won't get into this too much. And all this is just the small print that tells you everything we did in this report, which you can read at your own time. And now I'm available for more questions.
Are there any questions from Ms. Body?
Motion to receive is information without objection.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I see no objections. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All right. Does that conclude?
Thank you.
All right, we have one more agenda item.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Item 3 is a motion to approve a contract with UHY for internal audit services.
All right. Somebody representing? Madam Administrator, is this your item?
It is, Mayor Johnson.
All right.
This is as a result of RFP 23-142, which was directed by the commission to perform internal audit contract services. The procurement department as well as the finance department has received and reviewed all of the firms who responded to this particular RFP. We had several respond, but of this number, the bidder that reigned supreme would be UHY in the amount of $290,500 that is being presented to you for consideration today.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. I don't see anybody else in the queue. Was there any discussion or questions regarding this? Is this a matter that we have to approve the intake before the entire body?
Yes, it will go before the full commission on December 5th, but this board would, the pension committee would also need to make a decision today or recommendation.
All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the first, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to hear the scope of this contract.
Director Williams.
Okay. The scope that was put in the RFP as directed by the commission was for a firm to be able to cover approximately 25% of Augusta's Richmond County departments each year, with the plan being a 4-year plan where at the end of 4 years, 100% of the departments would have been touched, reviewed in some way, shape, or form with an agreed-upon work plan. So this was the way that the bidders were required to respond. They responded with various, let me back up just a minute. As with the RFP process, the strength of the respondents' response to the RFP was first evaluated by the evaluation committee without any fee information associated with it. All those were scored, and then the fees were opened by procurement. Those were evaluated. Those scores were added in to the existing quality of the response score. The highest scoring respondent at that time was UHY, at which time we entered into contract negotiations with that firm and they responded with an agreed-upon number of hours service to performed with agreed-upon rates for each type of individual that is in, like partner, managing partner, staff accountant, et cetera. Each one of those had a rate. When that was extended, the total bid was $290,500.
Thank you, Director Williams. All right. Commissioner Johnson, you still in the queue? You
Yes,
good,
sir. I guess what I'm looking for mostly is what would the audit be looking for? I know that we had a conversation about looking for efficiency and things like that in our departments, and so could we go into just a little detail about that? What exactly would this audit, what would it be the benefit of a $1.1 million price tag for this audit over the next 4 years?
Yes.
Can you take that
Director
one?
Williams, yes.
Okay. So the process would be that once a contract would be signed with a responding firm, then the two entities, us and the firm, would get together to formulate a work plan. Which departments would be covered? What types of activities would be reviewed in each department? That work plan, once it's designed, would come back to this committee for approval and then to be forwarded to the commission for its approval before any work actually begins. You would be looking at, I think I gave a couple examples before, review of internal control procedures, petty cash, adherence to standard policies and procedures that are already in place, along with any deficiencies that might be identified during their processes. I hope.
Commissioner from the first, you good, sir? All right. So is there a motion on the floor to pass this on, accept this RFP to the full body?
Okay. I need to stipulate that because I was a part of the evaluation committee and was involved in the bid process, that I would be recusing myself from voting on this particular item.
Okay.
As would I as the interim administrator.
All right. So you know what? I don't know if I can make the motion as chair, but I will motion, and I don't know if I'll get a second, but I motion to send this to the full body of the commission for consideration. Is there a second? Are you on this committee?
I'm not on the committee, but
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Is your motion to forward to the full commission without
Yes.
recommendation?
Yes, we can do that.
I'll second your
All
motion.
right. So I have a motion to send to the full commission without a recommendation. There's a motion and a second, and I guess we're voting. I vote yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've got it.
All right. So I think that finally concludes our business for the Pension and Audit Committee today. Madam Clerk, I consider this meeting hereby closed out.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for getting here early. We're going to assemble. We'll be ready to start the regular commission meeting shortly. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here today. I'm going to ask my colleagues to come onto the dais so we could get the people's business done. Thank you so much for being here today on Thanksgiving week. I hope you have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. Just want to take a point of privilege to note that our glorious clerk had a birthday on yesterday. And we always take the opportunity to salute her when we get a chance. So on behalf of the mayor's office and the commission, Madam Clerk Bonner, we can't thank you enough for everything that you do for us, you do for the city, and you do for our community. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, with that said, Madam Clerk, I call this meeting to order.
Kind of choked up right now, Mr. Mayor.
No, sure.
Thank you again. At this time, we will have our invocation, which will be led today and given by Elder Jerome Peterson, pastor, Highway 56, Church of Christ. And we would like to ask the Honorable Sheriff Richard Roundtree if he would please stand and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand, please?
Join me in prayer, if you will. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we come to you and we are thankful for this gathering of men and women as they've come together to discuss how they can best lead this city. We pray, God, that your spirit of grace, peace, and understanding, knowledge and wisdom, it will guide them in this proceeding today. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's a pleasure to have you today in our chamber to pray for us. God ordained in Jeremiah, I believe, 3:15, says, I will send you pastors who will watch over you.
Bless you.
And pray for you. And we appreciate that today. A little still choked up here, but we're thankful that you didn't see it as an inconvenience to come and pray for us. Thank you for your prayer of wisdom, unity, and protection. May God bless you with his peace and love for your kindness shown toward us today. Thank you. By these presents, be it known that Elder Jerome Peterson, pastor of Highway 56, Church of Christ, is our chaplain of the day. May his spiritual guidance and civic leadership serve as an example to all citizens of Augusta. Given my hand this 21st day of November, 2023, Garnett L. Johnson, Mayor. Thank you.
Elder Peterson, thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
sir.
week, and we appreciate your prayer. Madam Clerk? Let's continue.
Call your attention to the recognition portion of our agenda. The Augusta Commission would like to offer its congratulations to our 2023 October Years of Service recipient, 25 to 50 years. Human Resources Director Anita Rookert will make the announcements. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Johnson, Commissioners, Madam Administrator, citizens of Augusta. It is indeed the pleasure of HR to recognize our October years of service. For the month of October 2023, we have 21 employees celebrating 5 to 50 years of service here with Augusta. This afternoon, we'd like to recognize our 25 to 50 years of service recipients. For the month of October, the total years of service and institutional knowledge being celebrated today is 356 years. So when I call your name, please come forward. Tammy Joyner, Parks and Recs, 25 years. Michael Fallon, Parks and Recs, 25 years. Billy Rucker, Parks and Recs, 30 years. Robbie Martin, Parks and Recs, 35 years. Finally, Miss Amy Joyner, Utilities, 35 years. Joyner. I'm sorry, Jordan. Congratulations again to our October Years of Service recipients.
Second. Thanks again to all the service award recipients. One of the greatest assets we have to this city is the people who commit their time to help us do what we do. So we certainly appreciate their tenure and their involvement in this government. So thank you again, Madam Clerk. That brings us to the delegation portion of our meeting. So let's continue.
Our first delegation, Mr. Dave Olson.
Mr. Dave Olson, you in house? You here? Yes, sir. Come on up, sir. Either one, you pick.
Okay.
Let me see. You can probably do this too.
Mr. Olson, it's truly an honor to have you here today. For our official record, if you don't mind stating your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Dave Olson, president of Savannah River Mission Completion. I live at 223 Clubside Drive in Lexington, South Carolina.
Thank you so much. You have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Last time I was in front of you was about a decade ago when I was last at Savannah Riverside. Been off and doing other things for the last 10 years, and I thought it was time to give you an update on where we've been since we started our new company doing the waste cleanup at Savannah Riverside. So we're one of 6 entities at the site. We're the ones that do the waste cleanup, not the weapons side, but the cleanup side. Savannah River Mission Completion, and all of our facilities are in the center of the Savannah River site from a physical standpoint. Came together in February of 2022 to form the company on a 10-year plus 5-year option, so a 15-year contract. Amentum, BWXT, and Fluor are the parent companies. I'm actually a Fluor employee, seconded to the LLC. We've got 2 small local companies helping us with niche areas, DVD and Westworks. We're 3,700 strong employment in the area, and 731 of those are Richmond County employees or where they live. We're about $1 billion a year contract, and we're still treating about 300 people a year, just age-based, retiring out. Some of the service things you just went through here a minute ago apply to us as well. The work that we do is to clean up waste in high-level waste tanks. They're about the size of a small basketball gymnasium, 8 feet underground, and you access them by a manhole cover, street covers, kind of access points for equipment. They look like peanut butter, pancake syrup, and table salt. If you could look at them, but I recommend you don't handle them in your hands because they're highly radioactive. But we turn them into long-term disposable treated products. 6 facilities in operation, all running and running well to get the waste out of tanks, treat it, get it immobilized for the long term. The low-level waste side goes into a grout form on the bottom right side of your screen there. They're the size of city water tower tanks built on the ground. That's where low-level waste will end up and grassed over at some point in the future. The waste that's highly radioactive ends up in glass. A glass matrix goes into steel canisters, and we're sitting on it until such time, or if such time, the federal government decides they're going to open up a repository somewhere in the U.S. This flow here just shows everything is up and running, interconnected, and treating and disposing of the waste. Small business outreach for us, we're required by contract that half of the subcontract hours we do each year minimally have to go to small business in the area. Last year we did $180 million in subcontract, 150 of that went to small business. And the number of those things in the Richmond County area, some of those are shown here. Augusta Industrial, Trifast, ESCO, and Univar, to name a few. We also give back. We call it time, treasure, and talent. Technical schools, universities, STEM investment. We gave Dorothy Haynes Elementary School STEM investment here a few weeks ago for their program and the like. I also opened back up again an active outreach I had to HBCUs when I was here the last time a decade ago. So I've gotten back with Payne again. We started some programs with them this time around as well. And the reason I was here, again, just get you updated that we're back, we're in business. We're on the year 2 of a 15-year contract, and we appreciate your partnership and support for us. Anything we can do to help you with your roles as well, glad to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Don't see any colleagues in the queue, but one, I want to thank you for employing the 700-plus Augustans as part of your team. Thank you for your contributions to the community and to this region and to many of our educational partners, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Madam Clerk.
Okay. Our next delegation, item C, Ms. Jasmine Ryan, regarding street lighting improvement proposal for 3313 through 3317 Mike Paget Highway.
Good day, Ms. Ryan. If you will, for the official record, please state your name and address.
Jasmine Ryan's address is 3418 K-Mac Drive, Augusta, Georgia.
Thank you, ma'am. You have 5 minutes.
I would like to propose a discussion regarding the installation or improvement of street lighting in the vicinity of 3317 Mike Paget Highway. The current lack of adequate street lighting in this area has raised concerns among residents, local businesses, and commuters. Insufficient lighting can lead to various and has led to various safety issues, including crime rates increasing, accidents, and an overall sense of insecurity for those who live or travel through the area, especially during the evening and nighttime hours. I believe that addressing this issue and improving street lighting in this area will have a positive impact on public safety and the overall well-being of our community. In January of this year, a woman was killed in a fatal pedestrian accident that took place in the evening at 3300 Mike Paget Highway. And a few months ago, September 6th, Ziana Fields, who was 21, was struck by a vehicle at 3077 Mike Paget Highway, about 2.5 miles from where she lives. And it was just very difficult to have to come into work and you're literally seeing blood on the sidewalk. So I really feel like we need to address that and have more street lighting on that particular area.
Ms. Ryan, certainly understand your pain, and I guess I could go a little further. Your family operates a business on that stretch of road, correct?
3317 Mike Paget Highway is where we have Rock Jazz Supply, which is a janitorial supply company. company.
All right, if you stand there, I have a few colleagues in the queue. The chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Fenn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is John Usry or Hamid here by chance? Because I want to understand, is this a state route that do we help, or does the state need to get involved if something like this?
Yeah, good afternoon. My question is start out with, Commission authorized engineering to do the RFQ for street lighting assessment countywide. So there are RFQs out and closing on December 28th, so that will provide us a better guidance.
When is that coming back? When would that come back before us?
It'll be first of the year. The closing is December 28th.
And this area would fall into, because you said countywide?
Right, they have to kind of evaluate and assess all the street lights. Yes, sir, yeah.
And then from a funding standpoint, none of the money's been allocated once that comes back, or where we'll put it? Or have we?
So the RFQ is supposed to be funded through the ARP funds allocated to street lights. I know there are some funds allocated to offset the deficit, but we'll work through it to at least get the RFQ in place and get the assessment done.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th, Commissioner Williams.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And your name again? I'm sorry.
Jasmine Ryan.
Jasmine Ryans. I see it up there. Let me ask you, what district is that? 6? That's District 6. Do you know the commissioner from District 6? Ms. Puglia, raise your hand down there. She's 2. Who's 6? Oh, Lewis. I'm sorry. I got up on the right side of the bed this morning. But that's the commissioner from District 6 down there, Mr. Tony Lewis. Maybe y'all can exchange some information, and you can go to him, and he can keep you informed about what's going on. As you see, we do have something that's going to be coming through there, but maybe he can give you a quicker fix. I don't know, but a lot of times it's kind of quicker to go through your commissioner. So maybe y'all can talk, and you get some information, okay? And I'm sorry, Ms. Puglia. That's okay. But thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
I got a quick question for the fire chief. I don't know, do we have any representatives here from fire? I just have a quick question regarding this, where our human lives are taken. She mentioned that there is blood on the road. Do we take any effort to clean that up to make sure that those that live along those paths don't have?
The fire department, no, sir, we do not. However, there are private companies that the city can contract and hire to do things like that.
Yeah, well, we may need to do something, because I understand, Ms. Ryans, and you going to work, you don't want to see where a human lost their life and there's still blood there. So as a body, we may have to take action and do something there. Thank you, sir. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
All right, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. I also want to add, there was a similar situation to what Ms. Ryans has mentioned that happened on Gordon Highway. Someone was hit, a pedestrian was hit, but there was like no crosswalk for the person to go across. And we know that Gordon Highway, 56, Dean's Bridge, you're seeing a lot of those pedestrians being hit in those areas. And so, not for discussion right now, I just want to make sure we have on our radar maybe some type of traffic study that would include pedestrian safety in those areas as well, because this area, you have Apple Valley and a neighborhood back by Dorothy Hines Elementary School, and Gordon Highway, the same thing. So maybe we should have some type of study done that would include some type of pedestrian safety in the future in these high traffic areas. But that's all I have to add there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Ryan, certainly appreciate you being here. You and Commissioner Tony Lewis, make sure you get us information, okay?
Okay.
All right, you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's continue.
Okay. Our next delegation, Mr. Richard E. Jones, regarding repair work on manways and roads in Augusta.
Mr. Jones, welcome, sir. I see you have an illustration. We need to get that up on the screen.
Yes, sir, because there's 2 items on there I want to address.
All right, are those items on our agenda for county roadways.
Number 5 and number 6.
Let's see, Olive Road, all right, both are roadways. All right, sir, if you will, for the record, please state your name and address. You're going to have 5 minutes.
My name is Richard Jones. I live at 2316 Tudor Drive, Augusta, Georgia.
Thank you, sir.
My concern is, since the computer hacking, I had to re-enter my work orders for different road projects that I had previously entered. Now that you're going into the budgetary part of the city, I would like for you to make sure that you consider increasing monies for the roads and streets of Augusta that was addressed a couple of weeks ago by Commissioner Jordan. I have done this, and I rode over one of the roads that was just recently resurfaced. I'm still dodging manway covers, and it happened to be on Millage Road. I had to dodge 2 of them the other day. Reference to item number 5, I have called the GDOT reference to that to let them know that in that left lane, there are at least 7 to 8 bumps that they created, since it's a state highway, that they need to level out so that we won't have to be running over from Lumpkin Road down to Tubman Home Road. They are very, very noticeable. And I'd like to know if the city is coordinating with GDOT to fix that problem. Along with number 6, item number 6, I was called one Saturday afternoon, and the gentleman was out looking at some of my work orders, and that one he looked at. Is the engineering department coordinating with AT&T or Georgia Power to raise the levels of their manways throughout the city of Augusta to make them level with the road, so that we as citizens won't be tearing up our automobiles, front end alignments, belts and tires, running over all these uneven manway covers that I come across quite a bit. And that's why I re-entered the work orders that you see on that screen there. And of course, I know I'll be finding more as I drive throughout the county and the city. And I hope that you guys allow amendments to be made to help provide the engineering department for resurfacing and stay on top of the contract companies that do complete roadways, because they didn't do it. There's about 2 or 3 on Millage Road right now. You have to dodge if you're paying close attention to the road. You have to dodge, or else your car is going to hit them.
Okay. Mr. Jones, that all you have?
I just want to ask that the city government do consider providing more funds as the year goes to surface these roads in Augusta that's all over that needs repair.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 3rd, Commissioner McKnight.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask you, I know that Millage Road just got completed, parts of it, but what part are you talking about on Millage Road?
When I got on it, I made the right turn to get on it from that church that's on the corner, you know, the big church on the corner, heading towards Walton Way. There's about 2 or 3 that the contractor did not level the manways with the surface of the road.
Okay. All right, I'll go ride by there and see it, but thank you. I just wanted to know for
They're in
clarification.
the right-hand lane as you're going towards Walton Way.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to, maybe the administrator can help me on this one. Did we not put $22 million in SPLOST 8 for paving? And has any of that started yet?
Commissioner, yes, funds were allocated in SPLOST 8 for paving, but considering being able to answer where we are exactly in those funds, I would rather Director Malik answer that question.
Okay. Dr. Malik, if you wouldn't mind, I think people forgot that we put that kind of money in the SPLOST.
Good afternoon again. So, yes, there was money in there, but if you recall, the bulk of the funds were at the tail end.
We haven't started
and
yet.
then we moved that to, so, and the list was submitted to the commissioner, I believe, through administrator. So we have around $12 million list, which we're working through as we speak to send it to procurement for the next year paving. And then we're going to have other 6 or 7 million, or depending on the funds, I think around that in 2025. So we're moving forward with all that. Back to the manhole, some of the manholes, there's not enough grade. Engineering is aware of the millage road, and it's not done yet. We're working through it to find a way to get that grade adjusted. Normally, we raise the manhole, putting a ring, but there's not enough grade there to add another ring to bring it, but we're working through it, so.
So we haven't spent any money yet. There's 12 million on the table, but coming up, but we haven't spent any of the 22 million that's in SPLOST data. Is that what you're saying?
So the contract that is ongoing, almost finishing up, that was $6 million, so we did spend the money, yes, sir.
So we spent 6 of 22.
Right, because that's what was available, yes, sir.
Okay, and then I will say to Mr. Jones's point, like, there's got to be some accountability on some of these contractors. I've reached out to you about a road in my district where the work wasn't done very well, so I just hope we can kind of watch what they're doing as well. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th, Commissioner Francine Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for coming in and making us aware of the safety issues that we have on our streets and roadways. Dr. Malik, you said we don't have enough to put to correct the problem that we're having in the roadways. You said we don't have enough of something to make
that's
it.
about the manhole.
Yes.
Over time, mostly they are utilities underground, and the grade settled, the road settled. And to adjust those, we need to have at least a couple of inches to add another ring to raise that manhole and then put a cover on it. And like Milledgeville, there's not enough there. So we're figuring out what's the best way to bring that grade without creating another problem, like creating other dip or hump.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Scott, certainly thank you for being here, sir. I'm sorry. Mr. Jones, I appreciate you for being here, sir. Thank you for always. You have one
other comment. Just on one of my previous work orders, for example, they did the manway cover, but it's like it's a half-inch mound now on one of my previous work orders from last year or 2 years ago, down on Walton Way between the Wendy's and the Popeye's Chicken, where you make the left turn to go to North Augusta. Mm-hmm. They didn't get it right. Yeah, it's between Wendy's and Popeye's. They didn't get it right. In other words, you still got a hump in the road.
All right, Mr. Jones. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank y'all.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Let's continue.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, our delegation E, Ms. Jenkins, called in and asked that we reschedule her to our first meeting in December. Okay. Item number F, Minister Dante Barley, regarding abandoned buildings and licenses.
Minister Barley, certainly thank you for being here, sir. If you will, for the record, please state your name and address.
My name is Minister Dante Barley. I live at 1814 Fayetteville Drive in Augusta, Georgia.
Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Today, I come with 2 questions on my mind. One question is, what are we going to do with the abandoned buildings in Augusta, Georgia? Because when you look in Augusta, Georgia, we have so many abandoned buildings that we cannot get to every abandoned building, and I understand that. But how can we get these abandoned buildings to the part where Augusta would not look bad? And then the second question is, when we talk about licenses, okay, I understand that the city issue business licenses. But why are we issuing business licenses to people that is not keeping up their business? For instance, like the one on Olive Road by Glendale. That store has a major problem. Because I remember as a little boy, you would see children being able to walk to that store without being killed. But see, when we got parents fearing for their children's lives, we have a problem. We have a problem. Because even a little child cannot walk to the store without somebody saying, okay, is my child going to make it back home safe? Is my son going to make it back home safe? We have an issue with that. We keep giving business licenses to people, but we don't have nothing to say that, okay, this is the demand that we put on people. What is the demand that we put on people to actually be able for them to keep their properties up? Do we have some type of standard in place instead of just handing out business licenses to everybody here in Augusta? Because everybody come and say, oh, it's easy to get business license in Augusta. Is it? Is it? Why we keep giving business license to people that's not gonna abide by the rules and regulations of Richmond County? Why? Because I totally feel like this. It's just a waste of time. We come say that we want business licenses. We give business license to everybody. We give it to whoever we feel that can manage the property. Why is that? Because most of the properties that I see, they're not being managed. They're being wasted. So I believe that we need to, as in going into 2024, I believe we need to take a look and say, okay, can we at least put some guidelines in place so that when these people come and ask for business licenses, they can say, oh, we can go to Augusta and own a business, and we ain't got to worry about the properties. Because right now, what I can see in Augusta, Georgia, we make it easy for people to come in from Columbia County.
1 minute, sir. Yeah, 1 minute.
Okay. We make it easy to come in Richmond County and own a business. But what about the shooting and stuff that's going on? What about the killings that's going on at these stores?
Is that it, sir?
Yes.
All right. I don't see any colleagues in the queue. Sir, thank you for being here. You have a great day. Have a great holiday, okay?
Okay.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, I think that ends our delegation portion of the meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right, I think we're ready for the consent agenda portion, right?
Our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 25, items 1 through 25. For the benefit of any objectors to our planning petitions, once the petitions are read, would you please signify your objection by raising your hand? Call your attention to item number 1. It's a request for a rezoning from a zone R1A, one family residential, to a zone R1E, one family residential, affecting property located at 2620 Barton Chapel Road. Are there any objectors?
Any objections to this matter?
Item number 2, it's a request, it's concurrence to deny a petition requesting a rezoning from a Zone A agricultural and a R3B multiple family residential to a Zone R3B multiple family residential, affecting property located at 1015, 1027, 1029, and 1033 Mosley Road. Are there any objectors?
Any objectors to this matter? I see one objector. I see one hand. Sir?
We have one objector.
You need to clarify.
No,
So there's no objectors, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Item number 3 is a request for a rezoning from a Zone R1, one-family residential, to a Zone A agriculture, affecting property located at 1898 Brown Road. Are there any objectors?
Any objectors? I see a few hands.
We got objectors.
We got it. All right. He's doing a count, so we have several for that one.
We have 5. Well, we'll take another count. Okay. Item number 4. It's a request for a rezoning from a Zone A agriculture and a R1A, one-family residential, to a Zone R1D, one-family residential, affecting property at 2804 Meadowbrook Drive. Are there any objectors?
Any objectors? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Item number 5 is a request for a special exception to establish a lodging and boarding house on property located at 1015, 1027, 1029, and 1033 Mosley Road, Zone R3B, multiple family residential. Are there any objectors?
Yeah, I see a bunch of objectors, Madam Clerk. We've got to count them all. One hand, please. Just keep your hands up. Just.
Which one is you pulling that?
It doesn't make sense because 9, number 2, we approved.
7 objectors.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Call your attention to the public service portion of our agenda. If there are any objectors to our alcohol petitions, would you please signify your objection by raising your hand once the petition is read? Call your attention to item number 6. It's a request for a retail package beer and wine license to be used in connection with the location at 2860 Washington Road. Item number 7 is a request to renew existing alcohol licenses in Augusta and approve Sunday sales, dance, arcades, wholesale alcohol catering, and an adult bookstore. Any objectors to any of those licenses?
Any objectors? Seeing no hands, let's continue.
Item number 8 is to approve a resolution designating February 11, 2024 as the Sunday designated for bars to be open for Super Bowl Sunday.
Any objectors? Seeing none, let's continue.
Mr. Mayor and members of the commission, our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 25, with objectors to items number 3, objectors, and item number 5.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're going to start going through these queue. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 4th, Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the consent agenda, there's item number 21. I don't necessarily need to pull it. It's under engineering services, but I would like to add an additional word in there for clarity. In other words, where it talks about implementation to achieve operation required productivity and efficiency with the funding of 3 new positions now and the funding of the remaining 2 new positions. So I'd like to add the word new to both of those areas, and it can stay on consent if that's agreeable.
Is there any objection to making those changes from this body? Madam Clerk, I don't see any objectors to making those changes. So long as they're made, we can keep that on consent. Do you have that for the record?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
We
okay.
have it. Oh, I'm sorry. We
Yes.
have it.
You have it?
No objectors?
No
Adding the
objectors.
word new
Add
to
the
the
word new.
positions?
To the 3 and then new to the 2.
Yes, sir. So
All right.
noted.
So noted.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th, Commissioner Williams.
Yes, sir. I'd like to pull number 4.
Which one, sir? I'm sorry.
Number 4.
Number 4.
Pull number 4. All right. Going on down the line. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thanks, sir. Just wanted to clarify that 3 and 5 were pulled for the objectors here, correct?
They were.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They were both pulled. All right. Commissioner Williams, I see you back in the queue. You good, sir?
I'm good.
All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
I was making sure that Mr. Garrett pulled it, and I was going to pull it if he did. 3 and 5.
All right. Commissioner Garrett, you have the floor, sir.
Motion to approve as stated.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, I have a motion and a second.
Who was that second?
Commissioner Franham.
Commissioner Franham.
All right. Seeing no other colleagues in the queue, we're ready to vote.
Mr. Guilfoyle, Mr. Franham? Yes. Okay. It's unanimous.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. For the sake of time and getting some of these. All right, never mind. All right, Madam Clerk, we're going to go top to bottom.
All right. Item number 3 is a request for a rezoning from a Zone R1, one-family residential, to a Zone A, agriculture, affecting property located at 1898 Brown Road.
Welcome, Director Delaney.
Good afternoon. All right, so Z-23-48 was the rezone from R1A to A. The Planning Commission has recommended approval for this application with the following conditions. Number 1, that the applicant acknowledges that the agricultural zone does not permit a petting zoo by right. Number 2, that the rezoning shall specifically disallow the addition of any manufactured homes to the property. Number 3, that the applicant shall abide by all rules and regulations of the Richmond County Health Department pertaining to livestock. Condition number 4, the property shall comply with all zoning regulations for the agricultural zoning classification, and any development of the property shall comply with all development standards and regulations as set forth by the City of Augusta, Richmond County, Georgia, as amended at the time of development. And recommended condition number 5 is that a 25-foot buffer be established along the frontage of Brown Road, wherein no animals shall be housed or serviced. And that concludes the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Director Delaney. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you. Mr. Delaney, as far as, I see what come out of planning and zoning as far as the conditions, but on item number 5, a 25-foot buffer, I'm concerned about one thing, the development across the street from it. That's major for our area of District 8 out there, is to have a gated community. Is there any way that we could change this buffer from a 25-foot to a 100-foot buffer as far as livestock being pushed back off of Brown Road?
The Planning Commission has not recommended that.
Can this commission make that?
I'm not 100% sure if the commission can or can't do it. I would defer to legal.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Mayor, while they discussing this, we actually got the developer here in this room. If we could give her a chance to speak, or her contractor, general contractor, Mr. Larry McCord, as well.
Yeah, we're going to give him just a second, Commissioner. All right, who's the petitioner for this matter? You present? The petitioner? Yeah, we need it.
We're here for the objector as well.
Yeah, we will.
The applicant is here and can answer more questions about what they can possibly do with that property and the livestock that they have there. If you'll state your name and your home address into the microphone, please.
Hello, Brandy Wallace, 4609 Hunters Mill Court, Hepzibah, Georgia. I would be able to do 100 feet from Brown Road Street.
All right.
Ma'am, we appreciate you willing to do that, willing to work with this body as well as working with the neighbor across the street. That means a lot. My motion is to approve this with a 100-foot buffer.
All right, is it acceptable to the objector? Could you come to the mic? Yeah. Sir, if you will, for the record, please state your name and address.
My name is Glenn Hughes. I live at 4358 Saxon Drive in Hepzibah, Georgia.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. So my wife and I, we're the ones who own the development across the road. In the area, in the Brown Road, Old Waynesboro Road area, my wife and I have owned business in that area, 3 businesses in that area since 1999 till about 2020. Our desire for that area is to see it grow, in which we really believe there's growth potential not only for that area but for South Augusta. So, and after we decided to sell the property, as we were preparing for retirement, we had the desire not to stop but to keep going. So we decided to, okay, let's do some development, land development. And so after we decided to do that, I reached out to my builder and my broker, and we started pursuing property that was available. Fortunately, at that time, immediately after that, this 580 acres of property became available on the Brown Road area, which is 2 miles from where all of our other businesses were. So from that time, we decided, so we met and we said, what we're going to do with this property if we get this property. So we decided to, let's do something different that's for South Augusta. We decided to build these luxury homes. So building these luxury homes, it created in us the opportunity, first of all, to be a benefit to us, but also to be a benefit to the city of Augusta as well. And so what we had to do was, in order to do that, we had to get the infrastructure, get everything in place to make that happen. So when we did that, we decided, okay, let's look what it's going to take to do that. So as any luxury homes, we're talking in the $600,000 range homes, location, 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 that's going to be anywhere you go. So it was important to us that we had the right location to do that. And so what we did was, we were the only ones who were at that time on the property because the other 520 acres was still available at the time. But our entrepreneurs, we know that you take chances when you do that. But we still had a burning desire to do something good for the city of Augusta. And so that's what we decided to do, and we pursued that avenue. So as Ms. Wallace came along, later on, she decided to put in the animals that she have now. So in reality, no, it's not a harm to us the way she have it right now. She have cows, horses, pigs, and she listed a whole bunch of other animals that she have. But she is zone R1. Now our concern is her zoning it agricultural, and zoning it agricultural, it give her an opportunity to increase the number of animals. And so our concern is putting all these animals on that 10-acre piece of property right across from where we're trying to develop a luxury subdivision.
Are you willing to accept the terms of the 100-foot buffer?
Well, so I mean, I'm kind of tied up right now, so I bet that's the only option I got. So I do want something to kind of to shed these animals, keep these animals away from where we are. So,
all right, Commissioner Guilfoyle, I see you still in the queue, sir.
Yeah, as far as this question from Mr. Delaney, as far as Mr. Hughes is concerned about being agriculture for the future, how can we limit the amount of animals, et cetera, to where it doesn't become a farm?
The Department of Health has regulations with regards to the number of animals that you can have on a parcel of property based on the square footage that is available and the land available. That is always going to be based on the acreage. So this is not something that the planning department would try to introduce a condition on. This is something that's already established by the Department of Health. So they tell you what type of animal, how many you can have. She's already, in discussion, said that she would have roughly somewhere between 12 to 15 animals, because you don't want to put conditions on that, because in general, once those animals reproduce, she does sell them, she does, some of them go away. But if you say you can never have more than 12 and then they have 3 foals, then so the realistic answer is the Department of Health is the one who sets those guidelines, and her 10 acres will put that criteria in place.
All right, Commissioner Guilfoyle, you good? Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
I was going to second Commissioner Guilfoyle's original motion.
All right, so Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, I would like to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. All right, you got just a few seconds, if you will. You got to state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Larry McCord, and I dwell at 2914 Damascus Road in Augusta, Georgia. I am the contractor and the builder for the development out in Brown Road, and my wife is the broker, the real estate broker for that property also. Our concern is this. If you're looking at a 100-feet setback for livestock and animal, as you all know, you just did a tour out in South Augusta. The appraisal value that comes and the fight that comes with certain things being developed in adjacent to this property that we're doing, it's going to be a bigger uphill climb trying to get the appraisal value to where we need to be. Also, when you start interviewing people buying that caliber of home, they're going to look at this situation and read it and say, okay, if I invest this much money here, what else is going to come to downgrade the appraisal value? You got to stop what you're going to stop now, because those two items don't mix. They don't mix. I'm sorry to say that, but they don't. And it's going to be an uphill battle for us more than what it is. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. And I'm just the one who's going to say it. It just won't work. It will not work. And we got over $750,000 invested today. We don't need a nail in our feet right now. And that's what's happening. We can't allow that to happen. We cannot. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt badly.
Thank you, Mr. McCord. I got a couple of colleagues. You may want to state, I got a couple of colleagues in the queue. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 1st, Commissioner Jordan Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick question. When did your development start, Mr. McCord? When did you begin your development on Brown Road?
3 years ago.
3 years ago? Okay. Ms. Wallace, how long have you been on your property on Brown Road?
October 2021.
Okay.
We were the first one to purchase a property in that location.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to get an idea for just time's sake here. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th, Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. McCord, Ms. Wallace, have you all met to come to some kind of common grounds because I see it could be a win-win, especially if we're trying to build South Augusta. Have you all had any kind of meeting of the minds that you all can live in harmony together?
Well, Mr. Hughes reached out to them, and we couldn't get a meeting scheduled. Mm-hmm. We couldn't get one scheduled, so they said what it is what it is. So I'm saying that, hey, it's not going to mix. It's not. The two properties and their value and their occupancies are not going to mix. They're just not. You can't put a livestock across from a luxury subdivision. You just can't do that.
All right. Well noted, sir. I just see. Wait a minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's not going to be any outbursts in this process. Okay. All right, no outbursts. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 2nd, Commissioner Pulliam.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. My question is for Director Delaney. Director Delaney, are there examples in other areas where agriculture as well as residential coexist?
Yes, all throughout the county, especially as you go out towards the Hepzibah, Burke County, Blythe, all of that, you'll see a good mix. One of the main things, too, about this particular piece of property, even the property that they have acquired that's in opposition, the McElmurray property was a farm. As far as you can see on the left, the right, east, west, you're going to see land that was used for agricultural purposes. Now, what's not natural is probably the development of the luxury home in the middle of all of this agricultural property. So there is a way for them to be in harmony. When you come out that far, when you see what the use is out there as far as the use, you'll see that it's predominantly agricultural, undeveloped land used for some type of farming or hay, things of that nature. So this particular application and the request to go to agricultural, if you look historically, this property was agricultural. It was zoned agricultural. It was a blanket rezoning out in that area across the town, the county in general, that led to this. So with that being said, this is, if you look at the use, if you concentrate on the use that is there and that was there, this particular application, which the Planning Commission felt was in keeping with that original intent and the design.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Pulliam.
Could I respond to that, please?
Just a second. I'm going to recognize the Commissioner from the 6th, and I'll give you a minute, okay? Commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Delaney.
Yes, sir.
What prohibits, I see this request for rezoning, but what prohibits Ms. Wallace, is it Ms. Wallace? What prohibits Ms. Wallace from having livestock at the current zoning that it is at now? Or does it prohibit her from having any livestock?
She could have some, but when you look at the intent, what she's described, the educational purposes and what she put in her letter of intent for how she intends to use the property to have people potentially come to have veterinarians coming to the property, that's not typical of a person who has something that's livestock just for their home, like 2 or 3 chickens and things of that nature. She's going to have these animals service, veterinary services and things like that. She's doing educational things. So with that being said, having the amount of, just people coming that are coming to service the animals and such, that's part of the agricultural way. So she could have a few livestock items based on the size of the lot, but it would not be, it wouldn't be conducive. This is the right pathway to go. She did get advised, and this was consistent with it. What she needs it to do.
So this particular application or this rezoning does not allow for said petting zoo?
That's correct. There's no petting zoo.
We
also made it in the conditions, and the applicant agreed to it also. There's no petting zoo.
Thank you.
Call for the question.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote. You're voting?
Yeah, trouble. Oh, okay. That motion carries 8-2 with Mr. Tony Lewis and Mr. Wayne Guilfoyle voting no.
All right. Madam Clerk, let's move on.
Okay. Our next item, number 5. 4, it was pulled, yes. A request for a rezoning from a Zone A agriculture in the Zone R1A 1 family residential affecting property located at 2804 Meadowbrook Drive.
All right, Director Delaney.
I pulled the wrong folder, so I apologize. I got to go back. I need that folder, please. My apologies. I grabbed the wrong one. I'm on vacation.
So does that apply to the pigs?
Yes, sir. It definitely does apply. All right. All right. So Z-23-50 is a rezoning petition from A and R1A to R1D. This application was brought by High Brass Development LLC on behalf of Glenda Denhart and Johnny Anderson Sr. It's in regards to a parcel of property, roughly 10 acres on 2804 Meadowbrook Drive. We didn't have anyone show up in opposition to it. They are proposing to do a single-family detached subdivision, and the Planning Commission recommended approval with 4 conditions, and that was that the proposed development substantially conform to the subdivision layout that was submitted. And number 2, that the architectural features of the homes within the subdivision be complementary to the surrounding neighborhoods, and at a minimum, the front facades of the homes shall be brick or some stacked stone, variation of stacked stone. Condition number 3 was that approval of the rezoning request does not constitute approval of the conceptual subdivision layout, and that the subdivision plan has to go through the standard regulations for subdivision approval in Augusta, Richmond County. And condition number 4 is just compliance with all Augusta, Richmond County regulations as amended at their time of development. And we can field any questions.
All right, so Commissioner who pulled it, Commissioner from the 5th, Commissioner Williams, sir, you're on the clock.
Yeah. Is the developer here? So, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, you certainly can.
I'm trying to put my head around, where exactly are we talking about on Meadowbrook?
Sir, if you got to identify yourself, name and address.
Bo Slaughter, James U. Swift and Associates, 1206 Interstate Parkway, Augusta, Georgia. I'm representing the applicant. It's sitting there right next to the Meadowbrook Elementary School. If on the south side of Meadowbrook, Fawn Drive, there's a couple other drives up there.
Now, there's a park on one side of the school, and you said this is on the other side of the school?
Yes, sir. I mean, there's a little open area between this wooded area and the school, but there's just a dead-end street that stubs into this. So the park must be on the west side of the school, and we're on the east side, southeast side of it.
Yeah, I think I'm baffled, and some other people are looking baffled, too. Let me ask you this. What is the price point of these houses that you want to build?
I don't know if they have a, point. I'm not involved in the selling of the houses or the construction of the houses. I'm the civil engineer that did the layout for the subdivision itself.
Well, let me. Meadowbrook is one of our areas that has been beaten up over a period of time. You've got a lot of low-income people who live over there. I'm not interested in putting together a situation where we exacerbate whatever is going on over there. So I would imagine that you don't know some of the inner workings. You said you're here to represent some other folks. I'd like to we're looking at the map, and there's a bunch of trees. If I could, I'd like to meet with, along with some constituents from Meadowbrook, I'd like to meet with the developers of this particular development before we vote on it. So, say again?
I've heard that there's no opposition to this matter, sir.
Yeah, that's because you got some folks over there who probably, and one thing we've discussed, the little old signs that we put out from the department or what have you probably had nobody, but I'm opposing it, and I want to talk about it because I'm not interested in creating a situation where we just take this subdivision and we just put put folks in on top of folks, and it's not good for the neighborhood.
All right, sir.
So my motion is to move this back to the next commission meeting.
All right,
pending a meeting with the developer and some neighbors that I know live over there.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So that's my motion.
Commissioner from the 5th has a motion, substitute motion. Madam Clerk, is there a second?
Second.
Well, the original motion is to approve it. There's a motion to move it, and there's a proper second it. All right, let's vote.
All right, let's vote, please.
You want to move it
To move it back to the next commission meeting, pending a meeting with the developer and some folks from the neighborhood. And well, it doesn't have to go through planning, I don't think.
No, it'd be deferred to the December 4th meeting.
Okay, and one thing that I do want is for us to start looking at price point. When we say price point, if you're going to sell a house for $80,000, you're inviting anybody and everybody to live in that neighborhood that already has anybody and everybody who lives in that particular neighborhood. So I'm not interested in creating a situation that's going to make living in a particular neighborhood any worse. So I'm not saying I'm going to vote against it. What I am saying is that I want to talk about it. Maybe one meeting that's probably going to take maybe an hour or so with some folks who live over there, and maybe you guys can get me some price points as to how much it's going to cost for those houses that you're going to build over there or what have you. So we'll get together. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, let's vote.
Okay.
We're already voting. We're waiting on 3 and 2.
That motion carries 8-2.
All right.
With Ms. McKnight and Mr. Garrett voting no.
I remember that. Okay.
All right. Let's continue.
Okay, that takes us to item number 5. It's a requesting a special exception to establish a lodging and boarding house on property located at 1015, 1027, 1029, and 1033 Mosley Road.
So special exception 23-08 is an application brought forth by Mary Ross and Richard Makerson for 4 parcels off of Mosley Road containing about 4.83 acres. The objective of the applicant was to put a women's group home, I would like to say not group home, but women's boarding house. There were concerned citizens present, so there was opposition to this particular application. What the end result was, they were asking for a rezoning and a special exception. With regards to the special exception to allow for the lodging in the boarding house, what was determined and the recommendation from the Planning Commission was to allow for lodging and boarding to be located on 3 out of the 4 parcels. Those 3 parcels are 1015, 1027, and 1029. There is a vacant lot that is amongst the group, and they did not necessarily want to recommend for the expansion of the lodging home, the use as lodging, but they did see the need based on the existing structures, capability to handle the lodging requests.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you. This question is for Ms. Delaney. What was the original staff recommendation for this item to the Planning Commission?
Our original recommendation, and I'm going to jump back to it. So the staff recommendation on the application was for approval of the special exception to allow for a lot. Oh, wait a minute. Nope. No, our original, I'm sorry, I looked at the packet. Our original recommendation was for denial at the staff level. The Planning Commission talked through it. They listened to the applicant, and the Planning Commission made the recommendation and the determination that they wanted to move it forward with limiting the use on 3 of the 4 parcels.
And how many women and what ages will these women be that are going to be boarding here?
I think the applicant is here, and I think she'd be the best person to speak on it, but her letter of intent is included, and it said 18 to 21 years of age, with a focus on people who are aging out of the foster care system.
And how many per home?
The homes were of different sizes, so one of them was used as a personal care home. It can accommodate up to 10 residents. She has proposed to put about 7 in the one that is existing that can accommodate 10, if I'm not mistaken. So that's about 7 in one, and then total across the 3 properties, she had said 10 to 12 max.
All right. That's correct. Madam? If you would come up, please state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Mary Ross. I reside at 3406 Grove Landing Circle in Grovetown, Georgia.
Commissioner Gary, you still have the floor, sir.
Yeah, and really the questions I had were how many people were going to be living there, and with the other 2 parcels that aren't going to be utilized. I know one is vacant. What's on the other parcel that?
It's just vacant land. Okay. It used to be like a pool there, vacant land.
And have you had any meetings with the opposition to the neighbors that are opposing this?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Did you have any meetings with the opposing neighbors?
I did not. I didn't know until the last meeting.
Okay.
I've spoke with a few of the people out there. They have spoke with me, talked to me while I was out there, doing things on the property, but never knew of the objections until here.
Okay. I think we do need to hear from the...
We do. Is there a representative that wants to come up, a representative for the objectors, if you don't mind? Commissioner Guilfoyle's coming to get you in just a second, okay? All right, sir, for the record, please state your name and address.
My name is Mike Wheeler. I live at 1030 Mosley Road, directly across the street from the proposed facility.
Yes, sir.
We've met with Miss Mary, Mr. Richard, seem like great people, a noble cause. I'm sure there is a need for facilities somewhere. Our concerns are we are so far out. There's no educational, no job opportunities out there. The conversation was trying to get these folks moved to where these things are. Transportation to be an issue. There's not recreational facilities. There's not a lot for them to do out there. And we have a lot of concerns. There's been a lot of discussion in this of some of these young ladies will have some mental health issues. Statistically speaking, these folks in this age group are not properly diagnosed, not properly treated. In many cases, some tend to go off meds as soon as they feel well.
Sir, that's not relevant to this. That's an opinion. That's not relevant to
I
the reason we're
understand,
here.
but
Okay.
these are statistical things of folks that would be in this
We're
facility.
here just trying to determine a rezoning right now. Okay, so I'm going to go through the queue, okay? Just sit tight. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I had reached out to the chairman of the Planning and Zoning in regards to this passing. My concern was in the Planning and Zoning part of it, there was 25 residents from Piney Grove and the area right around it. Piney Grove is part of my childhood where I grew up with Jeff Delaney. His mother lives right next door to this empty lot at 1033. Tim Kelly is right there on Piney Grove. And what there is now is a lot of senior retired people. This is going to cause a disruption in that area for one thing. If you put 10, 15 people out there that, for whatever reason, one, you're trying to improve their quality of life, there's really nothing, there's no transportation to get medical. It's going to cost a $4,900 ambulance ride because I know that because one of the residents got charged that from Blythe to the hospital. For our sheriff's department, I don't think they got a substation anywhere close to it. My concern is for the neighborhood and the quality of life that you put in these women in. And I don't know if this young lady who's applying for this has any experience in this, doing one of these facilities. And that's where the concern is. I have been reached out to numerous people. Mr. Lamb had reached out to me this morning. Amanda had reached out through email. Mr. Wheeler had reached out through email. But you had 25 people in planning and zoning. But somehow it got approved, even though staff recommended denial.
All right.
And I think we need to stay with that denial.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 10th. Chair recognizes.
Hey, you gonna put that in motion?
Chair. All right, he's out the queue. We're going to come to Commissioner from the 9th first, please. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Ross, is this program currently working?
So actually, the past year, I have been working with many people who have the same program. They have a 90% success rate with the program that they are doing, making young adults self-sufficient. So the purpose of the program is to, one of our major issues that we have with homelessness is kind of tackling it from a different end. So we're preventing it so that they're not reaching that point because of the possibility of homelessness, because of being in foster care. They'll have the mentorship and case management so that we can help them career-wise, so that we can help them figure out what they're wanting to do education-wise. And yes, I have about 10 years of experience running a program. I was spearheading I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the forensic step-down unit for East Central Hospital for 5 years. I've worked with CIH, the Community Integration Home, for about 5 years. So, and all of my staff, even though we are not doing mental health, we all are equipped. As of next year, I will have my psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner license in mental health. So we will be screening very, very well, and we will know of what cues, what to look at, so that we can, if there is any issues, foresee, before it happens. So all of us are trained. Every single one of my employees, they are certified life coaches. They have worked in the mental health system. I myself, I'm a board certified mental health nurse. Not that that's what I'm doing, but I understand that, and I'm bringing my knowledge to this boarding house so that I can help prevent an issue that we have here in the community.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. There's a follow-up question from Commissioner from the 9th.
And how long are you proposing to have these young women in your care?
Yes, ma'am. So it is ages 18 through 21. They have up to 3 years, not saying that they need it. It's just based on how they move through the program. So the way the program is set up, because that's what I've been working on, is I have put together, because I know they're saying, what are they going to do? I have a couple of business owners. So the plan is that I can connect them with business owners, show them how to create a business, show them how to run a business. So by the time that they leave, they can be self-sufficient adults. I am also certified as a CNA, teaching CNAs. They can do virtual, they are able to do virtual programs, and I can proctor their education. So I'm certified through the state of Georgia. So they can virtually do any course, and I can assist them and proctor them to get through these programs. Right. So the training they can do right in that location. Or I also have connected, as a nurse, as an RN, I have connected with a lot of hospitals and facilities so that they can go out. And as for transportation, I also have some transportation companies that I have connected with that will be providing transportation for them.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And I see someone come up to the queue. You only have a few seconds. There's something relevant you need to say?
I completely understand. Thank you, sir. My name is Amanda Anderson. I sent an email to all of you.
You need to state your address for the record,
yes, sir.
please.
It's 1127 Piney Grove Road. My property is directly in front of the facility that she is wanting to put this transition home. Actually, it's in front of 1033, which she claims is a vacant property. It has a in-ground swimming pool.
She mentioned that. She did mention that.
Now, I don't know what her qualifications are specifically.
And we're not going to get into that. We're here.
Yeah, I understand that. But as far as statistically, these transition homes never work out.
Ma'am, that is opinion.
I understand.
I'm going to have to stop you at that point.
No.
Okay?
I understand,
All right.
but I understand. I'm not up here to bash anyone, sir. But
ma'am.
as far as our neighborhood goes,
I'm going to call you out of order at that point. We're going to move on because I have a lot of colleagues in the queue, okay?
I understand
I just
that.
wanted to acknowledge you.
But I understand.
And your point is heard. Okay?
No, it wasn't heard.
It has been noted and it has been heard. So we're going to go through the queue.
No, because I sent an email and there was never any response to it.
If there's a colleague in the queue that has a question for you,
okay, go ahead.
You're more than welcome to address it. So Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, this question is for Ms. Ross. Who will be staffing these residences?
I will. I will be staff. You mean like, can you explain as of who is going to be there? Yes. So I myself will be there. I will have 3 people on site at all times. I myself, I have another person who will be there. She has 30 years. She's worked with East Central for over 30 years actually in mental health. So that's why I said it's not a mental health facility, but all of us do have a strong mental health background
So how are
running
these
this
boarding
boarding
houses
home.
funded?
Huh?
How are they?
Actually, I do grant writing. I have an additional, my mentor does grant writing as well. So we will have grant funding that is actually already in the way. It is a nonprofit organization, actually.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion to deny this request.
Substitute motion. Substitute.
All right. So wait a minute. I heard a motion, then I heard a second. So we're going to, and then there's a substitute.
You got a second for the substitute.
Substitute motion is to call for concurrence with the Planning Commission.
All right. Substitute motion and a second for call for concurrence with the Planning Commission. Madam Clerk, we good on that? Yes, sir. All right. You prepared to vote?
Vote on the substitute? Is that what we're doing?
We voted on the substitute first, to call for concurrence with the Planning Commission. So the substitute motion that's been properly seconded is to call for concurrence with the Planning Commission. Ma'am, you can have a seat. We're all done. All right, thank you so much. All right, so we voted on the substitute first, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Ms. Scott and Ms. McKnight, okay. That motion carries 6-4.
All right.
With Mr. Johnson, Ms. Pulliam, Mr. Mason, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Tony Lewis, and Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Ms. McKnight, Mr. Franham, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That ends that matter. Let's move on to the next.
Okay. Takes us to our regular agenda. Item number 26 is a motion to approve a new location. Ms. Walton?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a motion to approve a new location. It's an address change only. It's a request by Z Yee for a change of address for Yee's Massage from 3435 Wrightsville Road to 1912 Walton Way. This application has been approved by the Sheriff's Office and Planning and Development. Are there any objections to this petition?
That's Yee. Yes.
State your full name and home address.
My name is Z Ye. First name Z-H-I, last name Y-E.
Address?
Home address is 208 Winson Circle, Augusta, Georgia, zip code 30907.
Motion to approve. Second.
It's Mr. Williams and Mr. Franham.
Yes, yes, ma'am, Mr. Williams and Mr. Frannon.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we voting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's unanimous. Item number 27, request approval for exceptional circumstance salary increase to designated central services employees.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 4th, Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During this time frame, as we're looking at budgetary concerns and whatnot, want to make sure that we have a clear picture of what's happening within our government here. And so I've spoken with Central Services and looked at a number of the requests. And actually, I'd like to call up the Director of Central Services, Mr. Lampkin, if I could first, please.
Yes, sir. Director Lampkin.
Good afternoon. How are y'all doing?
Good afternoon, Director Lampkin. Got a few questions for you. What is the purpose, or what prompted you to have a request or a need for approval in these particular circumstances?
These requests were brought before you guys. It really didn't have to come to commission. What I did was abolish 2 positions in central services to pass out employees raises for employees that have been here a substantial amount of time. And with central services, we don't have a step ladder. So we have maintenance technicians. And what happens when you have a maintenance technician, if you don't have levels, then you may have a maintenance technician that's been on staff for 5 years, and then we bring somebody in new, and the salaries are still the same if no increases have been given. So until we can get to the point where we have a step increase, what I did was demolish 2 positions, as I stated, so it's no budgetary impact on the general fund, because of the demolition of the 2 positions that was already funded will go to support these raises. This should have been done on the administrative level, but it has not been passed forward, and my staff have been waiting on these raises for a few months now. And so it was brought to my attention, and I'm sure some of you have known, we've had some employees that have spoken to some commissioners and also to the mayor himself, asking how can we get these raises done, and that's what brings us here today. Basically what we're doing is kind of leveling out the playing field when it comes to our maintenance situation. We have maintenance employees throughout the county, utilities, the airport, and all of those maintenance, and also the fire department, pay more than what our central services employees are making. So this is just a way to bring those up to a certain standard. If you look at the raises, they range from 7% to 10%. A lot of our maintenance workers are not even to the midpoint. The reason why they were kind of handpicked the way we did it is because we do have some employees here that's already to that level, and all we're doing now is trying to bring up some of the other employees so it kind of levels out the playing field.
So another question, did you, you said at the administrative level, did you go through HR?
Yes, all the paperwork, RPAs, was submitted to Human Resource some months back. They approved them and said that they were okay with them. The only changes that needed to be made was 2 employees were not at the 10%, and Director Rickert recommended that I bring those 2 employees up to 10%, and that Human Resource would be okay with it and pass it along to the administrator's office for signature.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mason. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th, Commissioner Garrett.
Thanks, sir. This question is for our Civil Service Director. And I think you touched on it briefly, but just to clarify, this causes no change in your department's budget?
No, not at all.
So you're not requesting any additional funding?
No additional funding, no.
So, okay. And in regards to this normal process, you had full approval from HR, and then it goes to the administrator's office. I'd like to hear from the administrator to understand why we're hearing this instead of just going through the normal approval process.
All right, some of y'all going to drop out the queue then. Give the administrator the mic. All right, Madam Administrator.
Thank you, Commissioner Garrett. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this matter.
Director Lampkin stated that he was taking this opportunity to level the playing field. However, the information that I received from Human Resources would not level the playing field, which is exactly why the request was rejected and then sent back to Human Resources. There are several employees within the department that will not be affected. As Director Lampkin just stated, he handpicked who he decided to provide increases to. It is stated on documentation that some of these increases may create inequities within his own department, which is something that we're trying to eradicate throughout our entire government versus creating inequities within one's own department. It was also requested that Director Lampkin meet with Human Resources further in an attempt to work through some of these issues. So it was indeed a shock to me as well that this item has gone dormant for such a long time and it is now on the commission floor. But Human Resources and myself are open to meeting the department's needs, provided it is within their existing budget allowances.
Thank you, Administrator. And if you would, there you go. All right, Commissioner Garrett, you get back in, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a motion that we approve as stated.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and there's a second. There's a few other folks in the queue. Commissioner, nobody's in the queue. You're in the queue. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7.
Director Lampkin, you said this was within your budget. If we approve this today, does it affect your ability to cut 2% out of your budget?
No, it would not.
Thank you, sir. That's what I need to hear.
Oh, yeah. All right, Madam Clerk, the Commissioner from the 2nd, you just hopped in.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I have a question. So with the 2 positions that were being eradicated and they're no longer in existence, was someone actually in those positions?
No, they have been vacant for quite some time, and so we have not been able to fill them. So it was easy for me to spread out the duties and demolish the positions and then give increases.
Okay. So I know as we talk about our right sizing and grounds maintenance and things of that nature, not having those 2 positions, is that going to put more work on the current employees that you have as far as keeping up with and exceeding grounds maintenance?
No, ma'am, not at all. We'll be fine with those 2 positions now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You got it. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Lampkin. So what the administrator was saying about the inequities, compression issues, you didn't bring this to her first before going to HR?
The process is to go through HR to get all the necessary paperwork in order. We did that, and then it passes to the administrator's office for signature. The administrator did state to me that she had questions. She was sending it back to Human Resource. As I said, I spoke with Director Rooker. We made some adjustments and changed it. I sent it back, and it still has not yet been approved, and so that's how we end up here. Like I said, I had employees asking for it. As far as the compression issues, just to give you an example, I have a maintenance technician, and the reason why some of those raises were handpicked is we have a maintenance technician that was at, say, $39,000, but we have other maintenance technicians that's at $34,000, $33,000, so they did get the increase to kind of bring them up to where we have our highest level technician at. Also, some of these employees are new employees, and then coming aboard as a director, you're able to give 10%, so we give them the 10% coming in, so we wouldn't go back and give them more money at this time.
How long have you been working on this?
We've been working on this for pretty much all of this year, trying to determine who would get the raises and who would not. So we've done our due diligence. We passed it along, like I said, to Human Resource probably back about 4 months ago to try to get this passed through.
Thank you.
You got it, Commissioner Guilfoyle. Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a proper second, and I think we're prepared to vote now. Let's vote.
Thank you.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Director. Madam Clerk, let's keep working.
Item number 28, presentation from the administrator's recommendation for funding of new jail pods.
All right, Interim Administrator Dowse.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. On September 5th, this body made a recommendation for the administrator to come back to provide recommendations with funding a new jail pod. In your agenda books behind item number 28, the Finance Department has presented, and with my conjunction, 3 recommendations on, or 3 options to fund this new jail pod. The first being issue a general obligation bond, which would require a question to be placed on the voters' ballot for approval. Please note that there are 3 election dates in 2024 available if this is the route that this body decides to go. If approved, an additional millage rate would be added to the property tax bills to provide for debt service for this funding opportunity. Option 2 is utilizing the Urban Redevelopment Agency, also known as the URA, to issue revenue bonds backed by a IGA with Augusta. The source of this funding would be SPLOST, and so that means that we would be go ahead and starting to make decisions on what our SPLOST 9 would look like. The estimated collection date will begin January 1st of 2027 for SPLOST. If we choose to go this route, the bonds would be issued in 2024 to minimize the impact. However, we would also ensure that there's capitalized interest to assist with paying the debt at that particular time. And then option number 3 would be waiting until phase 9 of SPLOST, which again, SPLOST collections are not slated to begin until January of 2027. And those are the 3 options that we've presented before you today. Option 1, general obligation bonds. Option 2, utilizing the URA, or option 3, SPLOST 9.
So before I start the queue, option 1 does require that we offer a millage rate increase, right?
That's correct.
Option 2, does it offer that opportunity? We don't have to take on a millage rate increase or option 2, do we? But the URA offer.
That's correct.
All right, we're very good. All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Madam Administrator, thank you for taking time, as well as the finance team, to bring this back to us. I know this is very important. It's an important issue for all of us, for the safety-wise, as well as for our employees of the Sheriff's Department out at the jail. I know that the GO bonds, I don't think the voters going to vote themselves a increase in the tax. The waiting on SPLOST 9, I believe when the sheriff came before us last time, it was something like $7 or $13 million increase by waiting this long. I believe option number 2, which is going through the URA to do the bonds, would be our best path forward, because we could consider that area blight alone, because of the jail itself is in just terrible condition, and the area could use a revitalization. But I know that under the following actions be required, approval of a move forward resolution directing the administrator and finance team to prepare a resolution that the commission find that the jail is located in the pocket blight. So I'd like to make a motion in that. I know there's going to be further discussion in this, but the longer we wait, the worse it's going to be, and the worse it's going to be for on the sheriff as well as his staff.
Commissioner from the 10th, please clarify your motion, sir.
My motion would be to move forward on option number 2, to consider the area blight to do the bonds.
All right, there is a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second for option number 2. We're going to go through the queue here.
Can we hear from the sheriff as well, sir, so he could reinstate the need for it?
Sheriff, you prepared to chime in on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. As I stated before, and I don't want to keep going back over the same thing, we have no time to lose. We're in the process of trying to play catch up. All of my staff, every employee, to include civilian employees, are doing mandatory overtime in the jail, trying to stay afloat. Right now, we're over 200 capacity, over capacity. As that time goes forward, that's just going to grow. That number is going to grow. The courts can't keep up with the number of people that we arrest, as you can see in the crime rate. Unfortunately, we have a lot of violent crimes, but fortunately, we do a great job at solving crimes, and we put a lot of people in jail, a lot of bad people in jail, and we just don't have any place to put them. And again, this is something that we saw 8 years ago to this day. This is not something that happened overnight. We foreseen this 8 years ago. And as Commissioner Guilford stated, the longer we wait, not long it's going to cost, but you talking about the build, it's just becoming more and more dangerous. And unfortunately, and I'm just going to state the obvious, a tragedy, if we keep going, we're eventually bound for a tragedy within our facility, not just with our inmates, but possibly with some of our personnel. And that is just something I can't bear to really go to. We need this now. Again, it's something we've been trying to do for 8 years. Whatever the fastest way to improve this situation has to be for the safety of my employees as well as the inmates. It's just untenable right now. So we can't. We can't wait to SPLOST 9. By the time you draw the funds and you build it, it's going to cost you more money, but you're talking about 5 to 6 years before it's complete. We will be on a federal decree by then if we wait.
Thank you, Sheriff. Chair recognizes Commissioner from 7th, Commissioner Farnham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, I guess, to Donna, the Department Director. We put $14 million in for a parking deck in SPLOST 8. How do we get the approval to move $14 million from a parking deck towards this? It's a dent. This is more important.
SPLOST regulations that are set up by the state of Georgia do not allow you to abandon a project once it has been included in a SPLOST referendum. It can be reduced in scope. It does not state specifically how far it can be reduced in scope, so you can reduce it
$12 million?
Pretty close to, doing a study, something, so an engineering report, the scope of said project can be reduced. I do need to get some more specific information because I'm not sure at this point that you can add an unnamed project into an existing SPLOST. Now, whether or not we can fit that into the categories, I need to get back to you on the specific.
So if we were able to move, let's say 12 million, because you say we can't take it all, I get it. What would we still do option 2 and it would just bring it down from the 40 million down, in a sense?
Well, we need to come back, in that case, we would need to come back with you with a combined path forward, but let's just say the $12 million that you're talking about isn't going to get you a pod.
No, but I'm trying to reduce what we're...
Right.
But
You're trying to cobble together funding, which is something that we regularly do. If that is a path that y'all want to pursue, we could bring that back as an option 2A in conjunction with if SPLOST 8 funds could be used in conjunction with a inclusion in SPLOST 9 funded through the URA. I mean, you've got lots of moving parts here.
If we were to do that, what you just said, does that mean we wouldn't have to wait, in a sense? Like, we wouldn't have to wait for SPLOST 9 or any of that to start?
Right.
Because time is of the essence.
The URA funding option was designed as a quick start to be funded, but you still have to agree, you are banking on that project being approved in SPLOST 9, which is still a number of years out. Otherwise, you don't have a funding mechanism. The URA doesn't generate any funding sources. There is no other method to pay debt incurred through the URA other than SPLOST or another identified funding stream. So that would be the unknown, the risk, if you will, is that you are banking on paying off debt that you incur issued through the URA through a future SPLOST phase and committing to include that project at one pod level or two pod level, because you're going to have to know that going in as well. So there are some more conversations that really need to happen.
My final question on this whole transfer, which I think we should look at, would the voters have to approve the change, or is it still in the hands of the body? I mean, could we put it on a May ballot?
The voters are not, the voters cannot.
Tim.
Sure about that one. We've never had this, I've never had this question before, about voters approving a change to an existing SPLOST package.
Yeah.
That has not been done. I'd have to do some research.
I think it's 14 million out there that I don't see as like the pressing need, where this is a pressing need. If there's a way to take a dent, 25% of what one pod is,
Yeah.
I think we just need to look into it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I'm understanding Sheriff Roundtree right, let me not speak for Sheriff Roundtree. Can you come up, Sheriff Roundtree? Donna, don't go too far. Yeah. It's my understanding that this is something that was needed like yesterday?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. Okay. And we're how many over the capacity at this point?
A little over 200 as of last week. And again, we're talking felonies. We're not, when everybody, I don't want to think that we got a jail full of misdemeanors and drunks and disorderly conduct. These are felons. And like I said, 10% of them are accused of homicide.
What can or perhaps may happen if, in fact, there's no action taken by the body, or certainly not soon enough? What's the recourse? What's going to happen? What do you foresee?
Someone's going to die, Commissioner.
Can you say that again?
Someone's going to die.
Huh?
They've already been done.
And I'm not trying to be graphic with that. I'm just saying from the number of close calls that we've had, and you can defer to some of your commissioners who went and toured the jail. It is a dangerous situation. And the more we compound it with more individuals, it's going to become more and more dangerous.
So from the finance standpoint, or our interim administrator, what have you, we see the need, and I see these options. Now, quite naturally, a few of them would take absolutely too long to even deal with. Now, under option number 2 with the URA, you still got to have that funding source, correct? Which we would assume would be SPLOST 9, which there's a lot of assumptions with that, though.
That is the risk that I spoke of as well.
Is there any other way that you can think of that may be out there that we can address this issue of importance? I mean, have we exhausted, looked at a comprehensive?
First of all, we need to know. We really need to know the target. Is it one pod? Is it 2? I need to know how much funding we're trying to get to. Then, when we get there, you build a pod. You've got to staff it. You've got to run it. Then we need some anticipated operational costs. Now, granted, that's not going to, be right now. The immediate problem is getting it built. So it's a twofold question here to finance. Is not only has the best way to provide funding, but how much funding we're looking to provide as well, and as well as the desired timeline.
Okay, so you haven't had any of those discussions with sheriff's office, or?
No, I have.
Okay.
We have the information that he provided back when he made his submittal for the 2018 rendition of SPLOST 8. So yes, we have had those conversations. His plans have not changed drastically from those, but yes, we have had those conversations.
So with that being said, the information that you have, I'm going to go back to my original question. Is there anything else? I mean, we see these 3. We see it doesn't really meet the needs that we have right here, right now. What else, if anything, can be done? Have we exhausted, looked at it comprehensively?
Yes.
Find out what else can be done?
Yes, and these are the best 3 options, of which, in hearing this conversation, option 2 sounds more along the lines in what this body is leaning towards. However, I'm definitely not stating that, but I also want to point out that with the use of URA, we are estimating about an 18-month gap in between time in which the general fund would be obligated to make interest-only payments. So I want to make certain that this body is aware of what all the funding costs would amount to for our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Williams, I asked you to drop out, sir. You can come back in. We're
I don't know. They don't like me right
well, we're limited to the number of people that can be in the queue. So an administrator need to speak.
I'm gonna propose something. You can go with it. You don't have to go with it. But I'm sitting over here. I see the need. As I told people, I worked in the it wasn't in the big penal system, but I worked at the Youth Development Center. I've seen what young folks can do to a jail and how they can tear it up and what have you. And I'm faced with a decision that we need to do something. But I know that they've come to us today and you're asking for $40 million. We've got 3 options on the table, and they kind of just, those options were given to us just a few minutes ago. I'm going to ask, and not that, we may vote it up. I don't know who's going to vote against it, but I think if we vote right now, not being certain of what we're going to do, that we may vote in a way that may not be something that's going to help us in the future. So I want to bring this back in 2 weeks. Just give us some time to look at it, to review it, to call the administrator, to call Donna, even talk with the sheriff or what have you. And I want to put it on the next commission meeting to make a decision on what we're going to do. I'm leaning towards voting for number 2. It's either way we go, it's going to cost us some money. And we're just going to have to suck it up some way, shape, form, or fashion. But my motion is to bring it back in 2 weeks.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and there's a second. There's still a few. That was Commissioner from Frandom from the 7th. Motion and a second. We got a few other colleagues in the queue. Commissioner Williams, if you're good, you could drop out just in case someone else wants to jump in.
You already dropped me out, didn't you?
No, you're still in. Commissioner from the 1st, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for the sheriff. Sheriff Roundtree, when we came out and did the tour of Webster, you mentioned a percentage of your inmates awaiting trial. Do you have that? Do you know that number now? What is that number of inmates waiting for trial?
No, we did the average length of stay, and it's 3 to 4 years that we are keeping. Our longest person has been in for over 6 years.
Over 6 years. So is it safe to say, and I know if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to because it would be speaking for the court system, but is it safe to say that the backup in the court system is causing you to have to operate the detention center as a prison?
Yes, and with all due respect, the court is working with us extremely well. COVID shut down the courts for 2 years. Unfortunately, it didn't shut down crime. It didn't shut down violent crime. So in those 2 years, we were accumulating individuals. The court now, on average, let's say violent offenders, as you can see from the newspapers, the last couple of weeks, they've tried 4 murder suspects. They're doing 2 a week. If you do 2 a week, every week, that's 2 a week. We average 200 arrests every 2 weeks. The math just doesn't work. The courts, they're trying them because, like I say, you can't try a murder case in one day. So at best, they do 2 a week. That is top speed for a murder case, doing 2 in a week. And the number's not going to, you just got to have a place to put these individuals until the courts can come up with a solution. They can work out some kind of deals. The court system works itself out. We got to have a place to house individuals. That is our concern right now.
So is that happening? I mean, is the court system, so are you saying that y'all do have a pretty decent relationship to where?
No, we have an outstanding relationship with the courts. It's just those 2 years of COVID when they shut it down, it's just going to take a while to catch back up. And like I say, in the meantime, crime does not stop. So like I said, again, we just got to have the place to house them. And this is, and if you all are world stewards of what's happening not only in the world but in Georgia, this is happening throughout Georgia for as detention centers and jails for the capacity. You see a number of people making Bibb had the 4 escapees because of his prison, the thing they're having up in DeKalb County. So this is not. This happened to a lot of facilities, but we have an outstanding relationship with our court system. It's just like I say, they just can't try them fast enough.
So how many people would you be able to house in a new jail pod?
You talking about additional pod?
Yes, sir. One additional pod. How many people would you be able to house in there?
I'm gonna let my finance director. She did the proposal.
Yes, sir.
I think it was 197. I think.
Yeah, so approximately 200 people when we did it.
Okay.
Additional.
Okay. All right. Those are just some questions that I had. I know Commissioner Williams is proposing to move it to the next commission, and that'll give us time to have more conversation. You know my concern, Sheriff. I don't have to go through that right now, but I hope that we'll be able to reach some type of resolve. But you know my concerns.
And again, absolutely. And again, if I may, and I want people to understand when I say about the narrow needs, we have 1,066 beds. That is not proportionate to crime. 160 of those beds are for females. 45 of those beds are for mental health. 25 of those beds for lockdown. Another 40 for medical. So those, if you take all those out, you don't have enough beds for just the people who are incarcerated for criminal acts. So it's disproportionate. As you've seen, you got a cell that's supposed to house 2 people, we have to put 4. And we have to put them on the floor because there's only 2 beds in a cell.
And then eventually, in conjunction with what you're saying, eventually we're going to have to talk about some mass renovations, honestly, because we know that there's been issues with, the hot water being available. We know there's been issues with locks and things of that nature. So, I mean, I feel like this funding request, while they're different, will expand because once we build a jail pod, we still have to go back and do renovations for the existing structure. So, I mean, I'm kind of torn because I know on one end, they are felons. They deserve to have a decent quality of life by the end, too. But, essentially we'll be spending more money to house criminals, more money than we're even spending to house people outside. So I get it. And like I said, those are just some of my concerns. I won't exacerbate the conversation. But thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, sir.
Sheriff, while I have you there, I know one of the concerns is centered around the lights that's being used to create these shanks. How do we address that first? Because as I understand, a lot of the new lighting, it creates a problem.
Correct. The old light fixtures, and one of them brought up that in the jail, they didn't go to the new lighting system like they did with the county. It's still the old system. So on our new present contract CGL, we're addressing all these issues that are coming up that we're seeing, the locks, which thank you all so much. We from the last emergency purchase, we were able to do 1 pod. Did we do 1 pod? 2 pods completed, so we can lock those individuals down now where we couldn't before. So that money that y'all gave us a few months ago, it is working right now, that we're able to lock down 2 pods where before we could just pop themselves out. So we're working through those issues, and again, we got with the company about those light fixtures to try to switch them out to something else they can't use. But the problem, again, when you got so many people in a confined space, they use anything. They're very innovative. Anything you bring in, they're finding ways to manipulate those in the weapons. You see about the stabbings that we have, and that's when I said again, I wasn't trying to be morbid about the death. We've had stabbings. We got an excellent health care facility here that saves lives. We had an inmate that we sent to hospital last week from head concussions, possibly had a skull fracture, stayed in the cell. That's why I say it is inevitable with that many inmates in a confined space that tragedy is going to strike us. I mean, that's just, but we're working through those maintenance issues. But like I say, when you put that many people in a confined space, and especially, unfortunately, that many violent offenders in a confined space, that is a recipe for disaster.
Got it. All right, Commissioner Guilfoyle, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Sheriff, can you do with 1 pod The only reason I'm asking this is I got to look at the next splosh because we generate about $234 million. If we spend, $35 million on that, you're still going to need capital outlay for vehicles. The fire department's going to need X amount of money, or engineering, et cetera.
This is considered a pod, sir.
Okay. So I would also let my colleagues know that if you wait it 2 weeks, really nothing's going to make a difference if we act now, because it's still got to go and prepare a redevelopment plan. It's got to plan a draft, and we still got to meet with the URA if we move forward now. 2 weeks is a long time, especially in the habitat that the sheriff's having to work in, as well as the prisoners that's in that thing. If you didn't have air conditioning 2 months ago, you sure in the heck ain't got heat out there.
That is an issue now, too. That's correct, because it's the same system. That's train system. So, yes, that is, we get calls every week about the AC wasn't working. Now that it's cold, so now we provide additional blankets. And now we even going into our fund, where inmates were before, if they wanted to buy long johns, their equipment, they had to buy it out. We're not going to purchase those for those individuals who do not have heat in those things. So that's something else that we're going to absorb out of our budget.
So let me ask the administrator, if we move forward on this, for you to come back with a redevelopment plan, how long would that take? Because you still have to meet with the URA board, et cetera. So it's not going to be done in 2 weeks, most likely 3 to 4 weeks before it comes back. The only thing I'm concerned about, Mr. Williams, with your substitute motion, is 2 weeks is a long time.
40 million is a lot of money.
We would look, you're
75 million is
right.
a lot of money.
But 40% of it, if you run it through the splosh, it comes from outside the areas. So as far as a idea on how long?
All right, we got to get someone to drop out. Catherine, can you drop out for a second and get all right, Madam Administrator.
Mayor Johnson, thank you. Commissioner Guilfoyle, I understood Commissioner Williams' motion for us to come back in 2 weeks was to further allow this body time to review the options as presented, not to come back with a fully developed plan of going with either option.
That's what I was saying. As far as I was saying that if we move forward today on my original motion, it'll take you 3 to 4 weeks to come back with a redevelopment plan. So that'll give time for my colleagues to have a better understanding on what the path forward is with the URA. Because we still got to have public meetings considering the jail blight area.
So,
yeah, we're gonna get to it. Let me have the sidebar. We're gonna come. You still in? We're gonna get to you, Madam Administrator.
I'm going to let the finance director speak to make certain that we get this communication accurate.
Right.
All right. Director Williams.
Okay. First of all, I need to make sure that the URA board is fully staffed with members for unexpired terms. I'm not aware of that. That is one of those boards that kind of falls to the wayside until you need them, like in a case like this. So there are a couple things to check, and then to lay out a process, because there, as Commissioner Guilfoyle did state, there are legal processes to go through to get this thing done. So I'm saying probably 6 weeks minimum to get you guys a timeline, a path forward if option 2 is selected. That gives us a direction. If option 2 is selected, then we can begin to craft that plan and be able to advise the commission on each step that has to happen within that plan, because the URA has to take certain actions. There are public hearings, there are various things that have to happen, and then that action has to come back to this body. So the two have to work together.
Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Well, that's like the finance director said. It could either be a month and a half or it could be 2 months if we waited 2 weeks. So it's up to y'all.
All right. Commissioner McKnight, let me get you back in the queue, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just see this, that the mayor, sheriffs come before us before and after being out there, a few commissioners that were out there, a month and a half, 2 months ago, what I saw horrified me. And the longer we keep waiting and keep kicking the can down the street, which it seems like we keep always taking things and saying, let's bring it back in 2 weeks, let's bring it back. We keep doing that and nothing gets solved. And so I'm with my colleague from the 10th that we ought to be able to do something today because waiting is just, every day we wait, the situation just gets worse out there. We're not out there every day. These gentlemen are.
Yes, sir.
So they're professionals. We're not the professionals in the public safety world. So I say that I'm keeping my second motion with what Commissioner Guilfoyle said.
Thank you, Commissioner. No, it's the original. It's the original motion. We got a substitute motion on the floor first. Commissioner Frantham from the 7th.
Yeah, just to kind of put a bow on it, I think this, though I think we all agree that we got to move and move as fast as we can. I just think that, I brought up questions and they're, hearing first time ever asked that there's dollars there that possibly we can use. I just don't believe today we ought to vote because I don't think it's ready for prime time. I think we all need to be on the same accord and give the department heads a little bit more time to make sure all the options and all the questions that were asked are answered, and then bring it back on the in 2 weeks, as Commissioner Bobby Williams mentioned, because at the end of the day, there's not much going to get done in the next 2 weeks. It's not going to really matter, and then we're off. All of December. It's the last meeting in December, and so I agree with Commissioner Williams. We need to just kick this to 2 weeks and have everything ducks in a row. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Williams?
Well, I was pretty much going to say the same thing that Commissioner Frantham said. I think 2 pods, I think it said 75 million. One pod is $37 million. And like I said, I'm not saying no. What I am saying is that we were hit in the face today with some numbers. And I believe we painted a picture that this is something that we need at the same time. This is spending money, from the people of Augusta, and we just need to have all the facts, be able to ask any questions, need to be able to call the sheriff, need to be able to talk to Donald Williams, anybody we need to talk to before we make a decision. So I believe in 2 weeks when we come back, we'll be able to make a decision. And I don't think 2 weeks will make that much of a difference. So as I stated, the substitute motion is to bring it back in 2 weeks.
All right. Madam Clerk, we have a substitute motion in a second before we go to vote. Commissioner from the 4th, Commissioner Mason.
I'm try my best to make this real quick. Okay, take my time. I don't see a lot happening in 2 weeks. If we went ahead and voted today, at least we've got some action started. And then that does not prevent the conversation from going on about what still needs to happen. So I don't understand if we just we make the vote, you still do what needs to be done, and then come back. But you're going to come back, and then we're going to do what?
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If the maker of the motion, not the substitute, if there was a substitute, but the maker of the motion, there's a substitute? I know we got to do the substitute motion first, but the maker of the main motion would amend his motion.
How would you like him to amend it, Commissioner Mason?
Come back in 2 weeks. We move to approve the, which one did you say, item number 2? Yes. Right, URA?
Yes, 37.5.
So that's what
all right.
That's for the 1 pod.
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner from the 4th is asking you to amend your motion. Are you okay with that? All right, will you make the amendment, please? We still got to vote on it.
You got to vote on your substitute.
Not the substitute.
Just mixed them up. What did you say? He said come back.
This is essentially the same thing. You come back in 2 weeks.
And that's what I meant.
Huh?
What?
Oh, okay.
What we,
So you can relate that?
All right.
what do you,
All right.
It's just I want
come back in 2 weeks.
his was just option number 2.
I know, he said option number 2, but come back in 2 weeks.
Well, you
know what
gotta,
that mean.
I know, but you gotta dispose of the substitute.
I know, before you can do it.
Before
It's
you
not
can
amended.
amend it.
We need to pull, they need to tell us before we flush out option 2. Bring that all the
Yeah,
details surrounding
option 2 to flush it out.
The first was a substitute. Then we
Yeah.
talked about the amendment, right?
Well, the substitute is the same thing, 2 weeks. That's what they want to do on both motions.
But the first one, he said come back in 2
2.
Don't approve it.
You can down 2 days.
Want to come back.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So, but you're gonna tell that to one of the employees when they get killed and shanked in 2 days.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So can someone provide clarity? Madam Clerk.
I'll let the parliamentary.
All
You
right.
want to, we're just going to go vote
All right.
on the substitute motion?
All right, we're voting on something. All right. All right. Substitute motion, just for the record, can you repeat it? He wants to delay for 2 weeks, right?
Substitute motion, yes, sir, is to defer to our first meeting in December.
All right. There's a
Option 2,
Option?
consideration of option 2.
All right, we're voting.
The original motion was to approve.
Yeah, my motion was to vote 2 weeks from now.
All right, so we're voting on the substitute motion. Madam Clerk, let's vote.
Let's vote, Al.
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
Flush it out. Huh? What you voting?
Oh, my God. It fails. All right, Madam Clerk.
That motion fails 4-6, with Mr. Johnson voting yes, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Sean Franham, and Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Ms. Stacy Pulliam, Catherine McKnight, Mr. Mason, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I guess we need to address the original motion.
Yes, sir.
All right.
To approve option 2.
For option 2, the original motion, it's been properly seconded. Colleagues, you ready to vote? I don't see anybody in the queue. We're ready to vote, okay? Madam Clerk, let's vote.
Okay.
With the amendment.
Let's add clarity.
Well, yeah.
All right.
The motion was, I mean, it was amended, but was it accepted?
That's right.
Who, the maker of the motions? Mr. Guilfoyle, what was it?
So,
You want to, well,
right,
it's
colleagues,
option
all right.
2, right? Yeah, that was the motion to approve
yes,
option 2.
that is right. And we're voting for it today. The original language was not
Yeah.
included or adopted, but it was option 2. The option 2 was originally
Right, to
motion
approve,
to
right.
approve. Option 2. You're exactly right.
Well, that wasn't in there.
Mr. Parliamentarian.
There was an inquiry, even though it wasn't exactly timely. When you have a substitute on the floor, you cannot address or amend the main motion. Now that the substitute has been disposed of, if there is a request for the maker of the main motion, Commissioner Guilford, to amend the motion in some kind of way, it will be proper to do so. It has not already been accepted.
Thank you so much. Commissioner from the 4th, you asked Commissioner from the 10th to consider amendment.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mason.
Okay.
Motion to approve moving forward with option number 2 for one pod for $37.5 million.
All right, there's motion and second.
Just amend it. No, sir, you good.
All right, Madam Clerk, there's some people that have voted.
It's been accepted.
Can we clear out? Can we clear out the queue? Can we clear out the queue? I think before you vote.
The amendment was accepted. Yes, sir.
All right.
For option 2.
So do we need to, because obviously there's some members that have already voted, do we need to clear out?
Mr. Franum indicates he's good. Anyone else voted already?
All right, everybody good? All right.
Everybody's good?
Well, we're all good. Let's vote.
Okay.
All right.
Ms. Pulliam? That motion carries 8-2.
All right.
Thank you.
With Mr. Johnson and Mr. Bobby Williams voting no.
All right. All right, Madam Clerk, I think we got one more item of business.
Item number 29 and item 30 were left. 29 is a motion to cut 2% of the administrator's proposed budget from all city departments, including enterprise funds, NGOs, outside agencies, and elected officials' budget. All money will be put in a reserve fund. The governing body will have a 6-month review of all departments. Each department entity will have to show the need for additional money. The request for additional funds will be voted and approved by the governing body.
All right, I'm going to recognize Commissioner from the 7th, Commissioner Fan. This is your.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we start the discussion, I think it's important to understand that our budget and approving a budget is the most important thing we do. And if it doesn't pass today, it's not the end of the world. Everybody's still going to have a good Thanksgiving, I can assure you. But when you look at the gap that's coming in the 2025 budget due to the ARP funds that increased our budget to over $1 billion, I believe that it's imperative that we look at areas to cut. I understand that there's certain areas that you can't cut, health insurance, bond payments, TIA, ARP, grants, SPLOST. When I put this on the agenda, I mean, I understood that some of those I couldn't cut, and I'm not going after those. But when you look at departments that, you know, we talk about, it's going to be a hurt services if we cut 2%. That's not true. That's a play on words to kind of put fear on people. We know that, you know, a lot of these departments have salaries and fringe benefits that, you know, are a large part of their budget. But they also have operating costs that we know that there's things that could be cut. Just today, we talked about the fact of the jail pods and 18 months interest only payments that are going to have to come out of the general fund next year. Just today, we heard a department head mention that he could handle a 2% cut. Other department heads have reached out to me and said they could handle a cut if needed. And frankly, we're at a time where we shouldn't just continue to think that raising taxes is the answer in this government. We see that we continue to grow 3 to 5% every year in sales tax revenue, or property values continue to go up. And it's not that we are, you know, as I stated in the motion, as you can read it, these department heads, if they truly need it, they can apply for those funds in 6 months when we do a 6-month review. Some of my colleagues I know would like to, you know, just go ahead and pass it without and then cut in 2024. But I don't feel like that's the right process because I don't see how that would work, frankly. We know that the 2022 audit has not been officially completed, and we're, you know, pretty confident that there'll be probably additional revenue that'll go into the general fund as well. Then they'll say that we don't need to make any cuts. I think that we need to look at this. I hope that we'll have support to cut. And if we don't have 6 votes for a budget today, it's not the end of the world, and nobody should take it that way. But when you look at some of the comparative budgets of 2021 to today, even with this cut, they're making significant, their budgets are significantly more. Yes, I don't want to cut NGOs, but at the end of the day, you know, we have to make it, to lessen the pain for everyone, everyone needs to be at the table is the way I feel. Just today I was handed a document where the stormwater fund had a $169,000 increase in supplies next year. And again, the justification, I didn't expect the department heads to know that answer to that. But when you see those kind of increases and a 2% increase to stormwater is $303,000, it shows that this can be done. Again, I hope that we'll have support to do this because I think it sends the right message, not only to this government, but also from the standpoint of accountability. Because at the end of the day, we know that every one of these departments have fluff money in there. We see it. We see merchandise. We see things. We see pamphlets. We see tchotchke items. We see all this stuff. The people see it too. And I think that we can tighten the bolts a little bit on each department. And I hope I'll have that support going forward. And I'll leave it at that, Mayor, and then I'll come back with a motion whenever all the discussion's out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner Guilfoyle from the 10. You in the queue, sir. You apologize. All right, Commissioner from the 5th, Commissioner Williams.
Yes, sir. We've been going back and forth about this budget. May I ask the administrator or Donna Williams a question, please?
Yes, sir, you may. Which one?
It doesn't matter. Maybe
right.
administrator. Miss Administrator, Madam Administrator, as Ms. Bonner has told me. Will we be able to reach 2% cut without cutting salaries?
Commissioner, if this is the will of the body, then my directive to the department heads will be to provide their suggested 2% cuts. And so
Okay,
I would think that they would
okay.
not do so.
My question is,
Okay.
will we be able to do 2% without cutting salaries?
I cannot state that confidently at this moment.
I got you. Ms. Donna Williams, come on up here. Same question. Will we be able to get to 2% without cutting salaries?
I'll give you the very same answer.
Okay. So nobody's telling me what I need to hear. And my understanding from conversations that I've had is that if we were to cut 2%, is that we would have to go into salaries in order to get to where we want to go. So with that said, I don't know whose salary we're going to cut. That's one. Two, we can't cut 2% without cutting NGOs. We negotiated down the library to 100,000, Canal Authority 150,000. I think moving about 300,000 or so. Correct, Administrator, to the engineering department, if I'm not mistaken. We had some money that we wanted to move to Mock Academy. We worked all that out the other day. I think what we need to do is approve this budget and come back. I think a conversation I had with somebody is in the motion to come back in maybe April. Would you say that, Mr. Johnson?
Yep.
Come back in April, look at the budget, the monies that have been spent, the money that needs to be spent, make adjustments as we were supposed to do when the previous administrator was here and then left, make adjustments if we need to. So I'm just going to go ahead, and he can do a substitute motion. But I think we need to vote it up or vote it down. I'll make a motion to approve the budget as is.
We're not there yet, sir. That's the next item.
That's the next item?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is just to cut 2%.
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, well, I'm going to make a motion to deny 2% cut.
All right, there is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second to deny. We're going to continue going through the queue. Commissioner Mason from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's try to look at this thing comprehensively. It seems like there's some things that we can agree upon. Number one, the 6-month review. I think based on what we had talked about previously and what I see here, it looks like something that we can agree upon. So that's something that should stay there. I think that as a commission, our responsibility is to set policy. So if we're going to set policy, and then policy is set, and then there's execution. So what am I saying? If in fact, whether it was 2% or whatever it is, I don't believe that it should be stated exactly where it comes from. I believe that's something that should be worked out between the administrator, finance, and the directors, if it's going to be done. So here's what I would suggest, and this is we'll stick with the 6-month review on all departments. I would make a substitute motion because there's a motion already made. Is that correct? I make a substitute motion to cut 1% of the administrator's proposed budget. And that's the policy that we'll set and we'll review in 6 months. That policy is the 1%. The execution is the administrator, finance, and everyone else. Find the 1%, wherever it comes from, find the 1%.
Is the 1% worded the same way as?
It's worded the same way. Okay. It's 1%.
I second that.
I have a second. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we have a substitute motion for 1%. Commissioner Mason, you still in the queue? Commissioner from the first, you're up, sir.
Thank you, sir. I don't necessarily disagree with what my colleagues are presenting, but the only concerns that I have right now is that every time we have a conversation about the budget cuts, the justification behind it is, well, we just need to show that we're willing to cut. Well, okay. If we're facing a deficit, as everyone is raising the red flag, the red alarm, that we're going to have a deficit, and our administrator has already talked about how there's a plan to address that deficit in 25. When ARP dollars were given to Augusta, a plan was already put into place to determine how to address that 25 shortfall, potential 25 shortfall. I just feel like we're talking about cutting a budget that addresses the concerns that we have gone around in circles all year to discuss. If we cut 1% or 2% or how many ever percent, that will affect service delivery. We say that it won't, it will. Dr. Malik just came up here last week and said that he wouldn't be able to get us to the place where we wanted to go because he didn't have enough funds to do it. So the budget that's going to be presented as soon as we vote is going to give him that additional money. Well, we cut 1%. That takes away from what he's asking for. Now, I know the administrator says that she's going to ask departments to choose where they want cuts from, but let's be honest about it. It will hurt our operations. We keep talking about cuts. We cut NGOs, that's Mock Academy, keeping kids off the street so they don't have to go into a jail that needs a new pod. That's going to cost us $37.5 million. We're talking about ACE, downtown Augusta. The business owners in downtown are always raising the red alarm about cleanliness in downtown Augusta. ACE will always, this money will be cut from ACE. The boxing club, it's better to sweat in the gym than bleed on the streets. Like the library, if students were able to read at a decent rate, maybe they wouldn't choose a life of crime because of poverty. That will, again, land them at Finney Road. Right-of-way maintenance, housing, homelessness. We complain about all of these issues every single month to exhaust. But now once the administrator provides a budget that's going to address what we've been asking for, we say we're going to cut 1% because $1 billion budget is nothing to brag about, because we need to show that we're willing to make cuts. There is no frivolous spending. And the problem that we have with that, Mr. Mayor, you're laughing, but I've been up here for 3 years, and I'm telling you, the dollars that these department directors are spending, they are essential to the operation of this government. Now, I'm not going to debate it. I'm just saying it needs to be said. It needs to be put out there, because if we start cutting the budget back, anticipating something that may not even happen, we haven't even gotten our report back from Audit and Jenkins, which is going to come first quarter of next year. That's going to show the surplus that might be able to cover for the shortfall that we keep screaming about. We keep adding to the budget. We're going to approve next week or next month, I imagine, this audit money. $300,000, $290,000, $1.1 million over the course of 4 years. We just approved number two, the number two option for the URA to deliver bonds, which an 18-month gap we're going to have to fund out of the general fund. The only place we can cut is from the general fund. So how are you going to pay the bonds back? What are y'all talking about? So I have no intention to cause any kind of rough up here, but what I am saying is what you're presenting makes no sense. The budget that the administrator has proposed is a budget that works. It has everything everyone has asked for. But if we just want to cut the budget just to cut the budget, just say that. But it does not make financial sense to start going in and cutting money for paper clips or supplies or whatever the case, and we don't even really know if that's what it's for. We're not the experts. So that's my only 2 cents in that. I would hope that we would take a look at this and put the political differences aside. I love the idea of the 6-month review. Let's go for it. But these budget cuts will hurt service delivery. I don't care how you say anything differently. It will hurt service delivery. That's why we added money to the budget, to improve service delivery. That's why the sheriff's office has 3%. This is why we did what we did in this budget. But now we're talking about undoing it. So I'm going to come out because I see I have other colleagues in the queue. But let's be for real up here, guys. Come on now.
Thank you, Commissioner. From the first, Commissioner Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to hear from Ms. Williams or Madam Administrator. Doing a 1%, could you go back and come back and tell us where the 1% would come back that would not have an impact causing any service delivery to the citizens of Augusta?
Yes, if that is the motion, the will of the body, then yes, I could go back and revise the budget based upon those parameters.
Secondly, according to our ordinance, when should we have this budget ready for prime time? Is it a hard, fast date that we do it today, or do we have any leeway with this?
Based upon Augusta's ordinance, the budget would have to be approved today. If not adopted and approved today, it would require a continuance. I would like for the attorney to speak more to Augusta's local ordinance.
Attorney Brown.
I don't have an ordinance in front of me, but it's very clear. The code provides that you as a commission are supposed to pass the budget today. It does. There are methodologies that people have used, but those are really not in compliance with the ordinance.
Say that one more time.
The ordinance requires that the budget be passed today.
But Commissioner Scott, are you good? You're good? All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner Museveni.
But if it doesn't pass today, the meeting is basically on hold until no other business can be done, but it can be voted on at a later date. Is that true?
That is a technique that you can use. It is actually not in compliance with the ordinance. It has been done before, and the way that it was done previously was that this meeting was not adjourned.
That's
it
right.
was considered still in motion. The ordinance provide a date for the passing of the budget,
Third Tuesday of the year. Thank you.
which would be for this year, November 21. The technicality that the only defense that you would have if someone decide to take Augusta to court for violating this ordinance would be to say, well, we didn't finish the meeting. However, the ordinance does not say that you can go past November 21 for this year.
Thank you, Attorney Brown. All right, Commissioner Guilfoyle from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe my first year on this floor, the previous commission had laid it in our lap when I took office. So it actually was carried over to the following year when the new elected officials came in.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Johnson, I'm coming to you, but as the office of the mayor, we have a budget. We probably have the smallest budget in our government besides the clerk of the commission's budget. 2% won't hurt any department as it relates to our, or 1% won't hurt any department as it relates to our service delivery, in my opinion. It's minuscule compared to the amount of waste that we have in this government and the opportunity to right-size it. I've always said that I think we need to create efficiency. This certainly gives us a great opportunity to do that. So with that said, I'm going to recognize you, Commissioner Johnson, from the first.
I don't have no.
All right, we're voting. We got a substitute motion, Madam Clerk. So the substitute motion is to
for the 1% cut and a review in 6 months.
That is correct. All right.
With the administrative, finance, and department directors.
You got it. We're voting. You better. Commissioner second.
That motion carries 7-1 with Mr. Bobby Williams abstaining, Mr. Jordan Johnson voting no, Mr. Tony Lewis voting no. Voting yes, Ms. Pulliam, Ms. McKnight, Mr. Mason, Mr. Franham, Mr. Garrett, Ms. Scott, and Mr. Guilfoyle.
All right. Madam Clerk, let's move forward to the last agenda item we have today, please.
That will be item number 30. Approve resolution adopting the fiscal year 2024 budget for Augusta, Georgia.
We can't do that. We can't do it. We want to cut the budget. Vote on that budget.
All right, colleagues. All right. Let's sit down. We got a little bit of unfinished business. We got a few folks in the queue, so let's go through this queue so we can. All right, Commissioner Garrett, you in the queue? You got anything to say?
Yes, sir. This question is for the Administrator for Finance. With the motion that was made before, will it be hard to amend this motion to include the 1%?
Yeah, because we don't know the figures.
I mean, it's 1%. I mean, that should be fairly easy math.
Well, if it was across the board math, yes, sir.
It is.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Mr. Frantham alluded to that in the earlier conversations.
Order, please. Thank you.
You will not apply the 1% to the bond issuance.
Order, please. Thank you.
You can't apply.
Can you start over, please?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Director Williams, you have the floor.
Commissioner Frantham alluded to the fact that it is not simply a mathematical reduction by 1% of every single fund that you see.
But the motion before clearly stated where the 1% was going to be applied.
Right. So we will do that, but I cannot provide to you the totals right now.
All right.
But I can operationally get to that desired result, but obviously right this minute, no, sir.
All right. So I'm going to call on the parliamentarian, Attorney Brown. It has been mentioned that there's been a tool used in the past as a continuance. Can you provide guidance on how we could do that, please?
Yes, sir. Pardon?
I think you were here when we did it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Are you saying you have disposed of this item, or you want to, is it will of the commission now to make an effort to pause this meeting and to move it into a continuance?
Yes, sir. I think that's going to be the will of the commission based on what we've heard from Director Williams.
It would simply be a motion to continue this meeting, and it will be recommended that you designate the date now.
All right, colleagues.
In the past, those dates usually have been fairly immediate.
Director Williams, obviously we're going to rely heavily on you to be able to provide some guidance. How long do you think it'll take you to get us next Tuesday?
I've got a couple people working tomorrow, but in order to do any good analysis, I would recommend at least getting us to a couple of days after coming back after Thanksgiving, maybe the Wednesday or Thursday of that week.
Okay. So, what day? No committee? Wednesday or Thursday?
I won't be here.
December 4th. Attorney Brown, so you're saying December 4th?
Yeah, you can do it, but it has to be 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, before we get started at 2 o'clock. The regular, we have to do the continuous meeting before.
Attorney Brown, December 4th, is that an acceptable date?
So can they do the, they can't take the committee minutes? They can't take a meeting. Yeah.
I clarified the motion. I said as stated, but that was yes.
All right, Madam Clerk, I think we've settled on the date of December 4th.
Okay, now,
The 4th. I'm sorry, the 5th. Tuesday the 5th is what.
Tuesday the 5th. We're going to continue. You mentioned before.
Commissioner. I need to know how much time. Is there going to be a lot of discussion once they?
I don't think so.
The 5th is fine.
5th is fine.
Oh, 1. 1:55. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, members of the commission, this meeting is a continuation that will occur on December 5th at 1 o'clock. This meeting is not adjourned. 1 o'clock, December 5th. And is that done without objection? Is there any objection to that?
None stated.
Here, none stated. This meeting is continued to December 5th, 1 o'clock. Have a great rest of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Thanksgiving.